Chapter 392. Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy drilled into the young man's body. Suddenly, the saint's seed seemed to have sensed danger. Waves of spiritual energy burst out, trying to expel Chu Fengmian's power. A little power seed wants to compete with me? Creation power. Suppress it. Take it away. The power of the saint seed was actually able to compete with the dragon might of the ancient war dragon, which surprised Chu Fengmian. However, he made a prompt decision and burst out another wave of spiritual energy. This was the creation power from his sword embryo. The creation power was the most powerful force in the world. It was even more powerful than the ancient war dragon's power. As soon as the power of creation was unleashed, any resistance from the sacred seed was rendered meaningless. It was immediately stripped from the young man's body. The young man screamed as if all the strength in his body had been drained. At the same time, Chu Fengmian held a golden power seed the size of a thumb in his hand. Let's see what kind of wonderful thing this saint's seed is. Chu Fengmian's palm moved slightly. Sword essence condensed and turned into a sky-devouring divine python, swallowing the saint's seed. In an instant, Chu Fengmian understood everything about the saint's seed. This saint's seed is actually a chaos seed. It contains the chaos power of the broken chaos. It seems that the owner of this seed is a warrior with a chaos divine body. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. The chaos power was the power that was born from the first broken chaos. It was at the peak of countless powers. In terms of strength, it was even stronger than the ancient war dragon's power. The chaos divine body was also one of the innate body constitutions. However, compared to Han Yueli's profound cold body and Tian Yin's profound transformation body, it was much more mysterious. It was one of the top 10 super divine bodies among the countless divine bodies. Having the chaos divine body was enough to comprehend the chaos power. Such an expert with the chaos divine body was extremely rare in ancient times. However, every one of them was a famous super expert. They were extremely powerful. After all, an ancient martial art practitioner who possessed chaotic power would vaguely surpass all other ancient martial art practitioners. It was just like how Chu Fengmian possessed the ancient war dragon bloodline, which was much more powerful than ordinary ancient martial art practitioners. An ancient martial art practitioner who possessed the power of chaos was even more terrifying than Chu Fengmian's ancient war dragon bloodline. There was actually such a person in the Northern Sea Academy. This caused Chu Fengmian to be greatly shocked. Bang! As soon as the saint seed was taken away, the young man lost his source of power. He could no longer resist Chu Fengmian's power and fell to his knees. Heavenly Death Seal. Suppress. Chu Fengmian glanced at the young man and immediately made his move. He condensed the Heavenly Death Seal, which turned into a black spiritual power and penetrated deep into the young man's heart. Chu Fengmian still wasn't clear about the Biming Academy's matters. Now, he had to spare this young man's life to figure out the Biming Academy's problems. Release the divine envoy now. Chu Fengmian, are you crazy? How dare you make an enemy out of the divine envoy? Seeing the young man kneeling on the ground, everyone was stunned. Lei Che roared loudly. This young man was the Biming Academy's envoy. If something happened to him, they would be held responsible. Lei Che, I haven't dealt with you yet, but you jumped out on your own. Looks like you're the one who leaked the Biming Saint tablet. All right, I'll kill you first. Chu Fengmian glanced at Lei Che and couldn't help but snort. Not many people knew that he possessed the Biming Saint tablet. With Lei Che's position as the dean of the Martial Victory Academy, it was only possible for him to know about it. He could tell who the person who leaked the secret was with just a glance. He brought such a big trouble to Chu Fengmian for no reason. If Chu Fengmian didn't return in time and allowed this young man to capture Han Yueli, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lei Che would be the one to bear all the blame for all of this. Die. Chu Fengmian showed no mercy as he blasted out a palm. He wanted to kill Lei Che with all his might. Last time, Chu Fengmian had let Lei Che off because of Saint Shui Mo. However, this time, Lei Che had once again provoked Chu Fengmian. No one would be able to save him now. Even if Saint Shui Mo were to come, it would be meaningless. In front of Chu Fengyan, even a peak saint would be crushed to death. Brat, how dare you? Before Lei Che could finish his words, Chu Fengyan's palm fell. Lei Che's body instantly shattered under Chu Fengyan's palm. The dean of the Martial Victory Academy died in Chu Fengyan's hands. And you guys, you dare to besiege the Cold Snow Pavilion. Today, all of you will die. Chu Fengyan's cold gaze swept across the others. These people had participated in the siege of the Cold Snow Pavilion. They were all Chu Fengyan's enemies. Brat, do you really think you're invincible? You want to kill all of us? Are you trying to make all of us your enemy? A saint from the Candle Flame sect stood out and shouted at Chu Fengyan. He had inherited Yin Mang's position and was the new sect master of the Candle Flame sect. Today's matter is our fault. This time, we'll give you a big gift to apologize. After the sect master of the Candle Flame sect threatened, he slowly opened his mouth to calm Chu Fengyan's anger. On one hand, he wanted to show his strength. On the other hand, he wanted Chu Fengyan to take a step back. That's right, Chu Fengyan. You're very powerful now, but you can't fight against the three major sects alone. Moreover, the Martial Victory Academy is also your enemy. Another saint, the sect master of the Eelist sect, Fenghua, spoke. Our Eelist sect is your enemy. Today's matter was ordered by Saint Envoy Bei Meng, and we had no choice. This time, we'll consider it over. We'll give you sufficient compensation. Young man, you must know when to advance and when to retreat. You've taken advantage of today's matter. It's time to retreat. A saint from the Three Immortal Island, who is the new island master of the Three Immortal Island, slowly spoke. Otherwise, you won't have a good ending today. If we tell the Bei Meng Academy about today's matter, you won't have an easy time. Are you trying to threaten me? Chu Fengyan's eyes flickered, and his face was calm. No one knew what he was thinking as he slowly spoke. It's not a threat. I'm just telling you that young man must know when to advance and retreat. The island master of the Three Immortal Island slowly spoke, as if he was confident in his victory. Today's 4 chapters, there will be more. Let me save the draft first. Chapter 393. The other 3 sects of Wusheng Nation, together with Wusheng Academy, represented the strongest power in Wusheng Nation. If Chu Fengyan were to become their enemy today, it would mean that Chu Fengyan was going against the entire Wusheng Nation. The island master of Three Immortal Island is right. Chu Fengyan, let's both take a step back today. We will apologize to you and let this matter pass. However, you must release the Saint Envoy. You can't afford to offend Bei Meng Academy. Fenghua, the sect master of Eelist sect, agreed. Otherwise, our 3 sects will support Wusheng Academy to deal with you. That's right. The sect master of Candle Flame sect stood out and snorted. The 3 of them looked at Chu Fengyan and sneered. They were waiting for Chu Fengyan to take a step back. Now, they stood firmly on the young man's side. After all, Bei Meng Academy was a colossus that dominated the northern region. Chu Fengyan was just a loner. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't go against Bei Meng Academy. There was no need to hesitate. The 3 of them stood firmly on Bei Meng Academy's side and kicked Wusheng Academy out as compensation for Chu Fengyan. They were confident that Chu Fengyan would agree to this condition. After all, Chu Fengyan might be able to deal with Wusheng Academy alone. However, if the 3 sects were to join in, Chu Fengyan wouldn't be able to contend against them alone. The 3 of them were colluding to force Chu Fengyan to take a step back and swallow his anger. Unfortunately, the 3 of them didn't know Chu Fengyan's character. If it were any other martial artist, they would have definitely taken a step back. However, the person today was Chu Fengyan. In Chu Fengyan's heart, there was no such thing as taking a step back. Moreover, anyone who dared to go against him must die. It was the same for the 3 sections. You 3 trash. Who gave you the guts to threaten me? Chu Fengyan raised his eyebrows and shouted angrily. Also, do you think I'm afraid of you 3 sects? The 3 major sects also have a part to play in today's matter. Since you dare to stand on the same side today, then very well, there is no need for your 3 major sects to exist. Chu Fengyan snorted coldly. The people from the 3 great sects had always targeted him. Back when Chu Fengmian had caused a ruckus at the crown prince's wedding, the three great sects had simply sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight. Last time, Chu Fengmian didn't have time to deal with them, but this time was different. Today, he was going to get rid of the three great sections. In the future, there would only be one cold snow pavilion in the victorious martial nation. There would no longer be any four great sections. People from the three great sects still dared to threaten Chu Fengmian. Anyone who dared to threaten Chu Fengmian must die. What? Arrogant. How dare you? The expressions of the three men all changed. Then they shouted angrily. Chu Fengmian, who do you think you are? Do you really think you're invincible and can contend against our three great sects? Let's see what you can do by yourself. The three of them were the sect masters of their respective sections. They had always been the ones to berate others. When had they ever been the ones to be berated? Their faces were flushed red, and they were all furious. Spiritual energy suddenly erupted from their bodies. Feng Hua, the sect master of the Eelist sect, shouted loudly. Just you wait. Wait for the endless revenge of our three great sects. You and the cold snow pavilion will be destroyed. Hearing Feng Hua's words, Chu Fengmian revealed a disdainful smile. Do you think you can still leave here alive today? How dare you? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the sect master of the Candle Flame sect shouted angrily. If you dare to kill me, you'll have to wait for the endless revenge of our Candle Flame sect. The old ancestor of our Candle Flame sect will definitely not let you off. Before the chief of the Candle Flame sect could finish his sentence, an incomparably huge war dragon claw had already descended from the sky and smashed towards his body. His body was directly shattered, turning into a cluster of blood mist. Don't dare? So what if the peak saints of the three great sects are here? Today, whoever comes will die. No one can save you. Chu Fengmian sneered. With a grab of his hand, the saint blood essence of the Candle Flame sect's sect master was collected by him. Let's go. Seeing that the sect master of the Candle Flame sect was killed by Chu Fengmian in one move, the island master of the Three Immortal Island and Feng Hua looked at each other. Spiritual energy erupted from their bodies as they tried to escape. Chu Fengmian's current strength was far beyond theirs. Now, only the peak saints of their sects could contend with Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, a huge bronze door appeared in front of the island master of the Three Immortal Island and sucked the two of them into it. They were about to disappear in the air. The door of immortal mystery? Looks like I didn't completely destroy this spiritual weapon last time. You guys actually repaired it? Chu Fengmian looked at the door of immortal mystery and sneered. Last time, Feng Dao had used the door of immortal mystery to launch a sneak attack, but it was smashed by the richly lush monument. Unexpectedly, the Three Immortal Island had repaired it. Once again, they summoned the door of immortal mystery to escape from Chu Fengmian. Even a peak saint wouldn't be able to escape from Chu Fengmian's grasp. How could a mere door of immortal mystery be possible? Come here. Chu Fengmian grabbed with his hand and reached into the depths of the void. Looking at the door of immortal mystery, he snorted coldly and reached out with his hand. The door of immortal mystery was immediately pulled back from the depths of the void by Chu Fengmian and held in his hand. Break! Chu Fengmian exerted force with his palm, and the door of immortal mystery in his hand was instantly crushed. It was crushed into powder and could no longer be restored. At the same time, the island master of the Three Immortal Island and Feng Hua also escaped from the door of immortal mystery. The aftermath of the door of immortal mystery shook them until they vomited blood. When did this person's strength become so terrifying? The island master of the Three Immortal Island watched Chu Fengmian crush the door of immortal mystery with his bare hands. The door of immortal mystery was an Earth-grade spirit artifact, the array artifact of the Three Immortal Island. The last time Chu Fengmian broke it, it could be said that it was destroyed by the richly lush monument. After all, the richly lush monument was a heaven-grade spirit artifact. It was pardonable that it could destroy the door of immortal mystery. But this time, Chu Fengmian crushed the door of immortal mystery with his bare hands. The Earth-grade spirit artifact was actually so fragile in Chu Fengmian's hands. His strength was even more terrifying than the peak saints of the Three Immortal Island. So strong. Has the young master's strength already reached this level? He's almost as strong as our former master. In the freezing snow pavilion, the primordial dragon turtle was shocked to see Chu Fengmian make a move. First update of the day. Thank you so much for your generous tips. Chapter 394. When young master left a month ago, he had just stepped into the wind-controlling realm and could at most contend with a saint at the third level of the divine power realm. But now, the sect masters of the three major sects are like ants in front of young master. The ancient dragon turtle looked at Chu Fengmian with shock in his eyes. He was clear about Chu Fengmian's aptitude. It was definitely much higher than any genius he had ever seen. But now, in just a month, Chu Fengmian's strength had grown to such a level. How could he not be shocked? The current Chu Fengmian was probably invincible under the life and death realm. In Wusheng country, no one could stop Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and struck out a palm, pressing down on the island master of Three Immortal Island. You can't kill me. Our Three Immortal Island has 3 pinnacle saints and 3 immortal old ancestors. Come and save me. The island master of Three Immortal Island shouted and threw out a spiritual talisman to summon the pinnacle saints of Three Immortal Island. Seeing the talisman fly out, Chu Fengmian stood still without any intention to stop it. Whoever came today would die. Since the pinnacle saints of Three Immortal Island had come, Chu Fengmian would have to trouble them one by one. Today, no one can save you. Pinnacle saints? Even pinnacle saints will die. With a thought, Chu Fengmian pressed down with his palm. The island master of Three Immortal Island didn't even have time to resist before he was killed by Chu Fengmian. The island master of Three Immortal Island didn't even have the qualifications to submit to Chu Fengmian and was killed on the spot. Seeing the island master of Three Immortal Island die in Chu Fengmian's hands, Feng Wufeng's face paled. Feng Hua, the sect leader of the Eelist sect, was extremely pale. His eyes were filled with determination as he roared loudly. Chu Fengmian, even if I die today, I'll drag you down with me. There is no point in escaping. Feng Wufeng roared crazily, and the spiritual energy in his body began to become chaotic. Self-detonation. Feng Wufeng knew that he couldn't escape today, so he chose to self-detonate. He wanted to fight to the death with Chu Fengmian. Wind Fiend disintegration technique. An endless gale surrounded Feng Hua, making it impossible for anyone to get close to him. This was the Eelist sect's unique disintegration technique, which was much more powerful than the self-destruction of an ordinary saint. If I'm going to die today, I'll die with you. Feng Hua swept up countless gusts of wind and suddenly rushed toward Chu Fengmian. He wanted to self-detonate to kill Chu Fengmian. Be careful. Han Yueli, who was recuperating in the cold snow pavilion, couldn't help but exclaim when he saw this scene. The self-destruction of a saint was extremely terrifying. Even a pinnacle saint could be severely injured or even killed by the explosion. Creation. With a thought, Chu Fengmian activated the power of creation within his body. Chu Fengmian suddenly took a step forward and directly arrived in front of Feng Hua. This was simply an extremely crazy act. How dare he approach Feng Hua at this time? Chu Fengmian's palm suddenly slapped toward Feng Hua's chest. Destroy. Seeing Chu Fengmian approaching, Feng Hua's face revealed a hint of madness. All of a sudden, all of the essence blood in his body was ignited. In an instant, all of it erupted. The boundless spiritual energy turned into a huge explosion that swept out in all directions. Suppress. In the face of the endless explosion, Chu Fengmian waved his hand and only uttered one word. Suddenly, the power of creation appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm. He pressed down with his hand, as if the entire sky was being suppressed. This huge explosion was actually suppressed by Chu Fengmian's hand and couldn't spread out at all. Then, with a thought from Chu Fengmian, the endless explosion of spiritual power directly disappeared in Chu Fengmian's palm. The power of Feng Hua's self-destruction couldn't hurt Chu Fengmian. Instead, it was suppressed by Chu Fengmian with a wave of his hand. Even the slightest explosion couldn't spread out. Feng Hua was completely played in the palm of Chu Fengmian's hand and had no power to resist. Feng Hua's body was destroyed, but he still had his last breath. Seeing that Chu Fengmian was unharmed, his eyes were almost crazy. This was his last desperate counterattack. He didn't want to escape, but only wanted to fight to the death with Chu Fengmian. However, it was meaningless. His life and death struggle was like a joke in front of Chu Fengmian. Die! Chu Fengmian sighed softly. With a thought, the battle dragon claw fell from the sky and completely destroyed Feng Hua. Who is this junior? Stop! Damn it! Feng Rui has fallen. Who dares to kill the island master of the three immortal island? This old man is going to tear him into pieces. Three figures came from afar and happened to see the scene of Chu Fengmian killing Feng Hua. Each of them looked at Chu Fengmian. These three people are the three old antiques of the three immortal island. They are called the Three Immortals. The Three Immortal Island was founded by the three of them. They're not easy to deal with. Han Yueli's injuries had almost recovered. She came to Chu Fengmian's side and looked at the three figures as she said to Chu Fengmian. Han Yueli's realm had reached the 7th level of the divine power realm. She had the profound cold body, one of the innate divine bodies. After stepping into the divine power realm, the power of the profound cold body had completely erupted. Moreover, she had become the pavilion master of the cold snow pavilion. With countless resources, her realm suddenly soared. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to resist the siege of countless experts for so long. It doesn't matter. They're just three old guys from the Three Immortal Island. If these three old turtles were hiding in a corner, it would be difficult to find them. But since they have come out, today is the day they die, Chu Fengmian said calmly. After all, the three immortals were three peak saints. If they insisted on hiding, Chu Fengmian might not be able to find them. After all, Chu Fengmian wasn't invincible. Unless he stepped into the life and death realm, he could easily find and kill the peak saints. But since they had come out, they wouldn't be able to leave today. The three old guys must have participated in the siege of the Three Immortal Island. Now, the three major sects were Chu Fengmian's enemies. Chu Fengmian would kill the three old guys sooner or later. What? The three peak saints, the three immortals of the Three Immortal Island, flushed when they heard Chu Fengmian's words. They never thought that Chu Fengmian would face them without fear. Instead, he didn't put them in his eyes at all. Chapter 395. The three of them were known as the Three Immortals. In Wusheng country, they were like immortals. They were lofty ancestors and giants. Now, Chu Fengmian's words were simply a naked humiliation in their ears. One of the white-haired elders, Feng Shengzi, looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous intent and yelled angrily. Chu Fengmian, what are you doing? Do you want to become an enemy of the Three Immortal Island? Today, you killed the master of our Three Immortal Island. Today, you must give us an explanation. Feng Shengzi stepped forward, glanced at Chu Fengmian, and then at the cold snow pavilion below, and snorted coldly. If you don't give us an explanation for today's matter and provoke the Three Immortal Island for no reason, you and the cold snow pavilion will be destroyed today. Feng Shengzi spoke with endless superiority and looked at Chu Fengmian as if he could kill him in any way. After all, they were all peak saints, and they had heard of Chu Fengmian's strength. However, they didn't take it seriously at all. So what if he could defeat an ordinary saint? There was a huge gap between an ordinary saint and a saint at the pinnacle. Today, in his opinion, Chu Fengmian was an ant that he could crush at any time. However, Chu Fengmian's confidence seemed to make him feel that something was wrong. But soon, Feng Shengzi sneered. So what if he was confident? He didn't believe that a junior in the wind-controlling realm could compete with a peak saint. Give us an explanation. Today, your island master besieged the cold snow pavilion. Don't tell me it has nothing to do with you. He deserved to be killed. Chu Fengmian looked at Feng Shengzi and said loudly, ignoring the threat in his words. He dared to besiege the cold snow pavilion today. Don't tell me it has nothing to do with you three old men. Chu Fengmian glanced at Feng Shengzi and sneered. Chu Fengmian didn't care about a peak saint at all. More than one or two peak saints had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. Feng Shengzi didn't make much of a difference. Threatening Chu Fengmian? Feng Shengzi didn't have the right to do so. We did know that you besieged the Cold Snow Pavilion, but that was the North Sea Academy's order. Do you dare to disobey the North Sea Academy's order? Feng Shengzi sneered and directly tossed this matter to the Northern Mang Academy side. However, you dared to kill the island master of the Three Immortal Island, which is a provocation of the Three Immortal Island. Today, you must apologize to Three Immortal Island. Feng Shengzi pointed a finger at the pavilion. Your Cold Snow Pavilion must hand over 500 disciples to the Three Immortal Island as slaves. At the same time, hand over all of the good fortune you've acquired, as well as the rich, lush steel. This matter can be considered as written off. Feng Li was in's Feng Immortal. Feng Yu was in Nan's sect. Even with her indifferent character, she was now completely enraged. Asking the Han Snow Pavilion to hand over 500 disciples as maids was an insult to the Han Snow Pavilion. Moreover, he wanted Chu Fengyan to hand over his fortuitous encounters and richly lush monument. I almost forgot. And you, Han Yueli, you must cripple your own cultivation and exchange your life for the pavilion. Feng Shengzi looked at Han Yueli with greedy eyes. I heard you have the mystic frost body, innate physique. If we can obtain your Xiantian power, we will be able to cross the life and death calamity and enter the life and death realm. We will exchange your life for the Cold Snow Pavilion. Feng Shengzi looked at Chu Fengyan and said calmly, Chu Fengyan, make your choice. Do you want to obediently hand them over, or do you want us to kill you and destroy the pavilion? Then, everyone will become the slaves of the Three Immortal Island. I choose the third option. Chu Fengyan looked at Feng Shengzi with intense killing intent. The stronger the killing intent in his heart, the calmer his expression was. Those who knew Chu Fengyan could come over. Chu Fengyan was furious. Chu Fengyan didn't make a move at first because he wanted to give Feng Shengzi a chance. But now that Feng Shengzi was courting death, Chu Fengyan wouldn't let him go. Feng Shengzi snorted. The third option? Kid, you only have two choices. Chu Fengyan's eyes flashed with killing intent. That is, everyone from the Three Immortal Island will die. Pay for the grudge of besieging the pavilion today. Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, Master Feng Shengzi snorted in disdain. He strode forward and suddenly attacked. You want to kill us? Chu Fengyan, it seems like you've lost your mind. For a moment, a gale surrounded him. Layers of gale condensed in his palm as he blasted a palm strike at Chu Fengyan. This palm was the real killing move. At the same time, a darkness appeared above Feng Shengzi's head. This darkness covered the sky and covered the sun. It was as if it had covered the horizon. Chu Fengyan, you didn't expect that the Three Immortal Island has a secret technique that can deceive the will of heaven. Do you think I can't do it? Feng Shengzi let out a hearty laugh. His spiritual energy exploded, and he didn't bother to hide his strength. It turned into a huge wind blade and slashed toward Chu Fengyan. There's such a secret technique. Han Yueli couldn't help but frown. Feng Shengzi was a pinnacle saint and shouldn't be able to use his full strength. After all, once he used his full strength, it would lead to a life and death calamity. But now, the secret technique that could deceive the will of heaven allowed him to use his full strength without attracting a life and death calamity. A pinnacle saint who used his full strength was completely different from those who were afraid of a life and death calamity. With Han Yueli's strength, if Feng Shengzi was afraid of a life and death calamity, she still had the ability to fight with him. But now, Feng Shengzi's strength had far surpassed her. His every move was aimed at Chu Fengyan and Han Yueli. He wanted to defeat both of them at the same time. This secret technique is not bad, but it's a pity that your struggle is meaningless. Seeing Feng Shengzi's full strength, Chu Fengyan's expression was as calm as ever. To him, it didn't matter whether Feng Shengzi was afraid of a life and death calamity, because he was just an ant in Chu Fengyan's hands. Feng Shengzi, your strength is not bad, but it's a pity that you'll fall today. Chu Fengyan snorted and blasted out a palm. It turned into a ball of battle dragon power and blasted out like a roaring battle dragon. With a single move, the wind slash that filled the sky was completely destroyed in an instant. What? This kid can contend with Feng Xingzi? Chapter 396. Wu Duzi, the other immortal of the Three Immortals Island, was shocked to see Chu Fengyan neutralize the wind slash with a single move. Feng Xingzi didn't hold back in his attack. A true peak saint could easily kill an ordinary saint if he went all out. Moreover, Chu Fengyan hadn't even stepped into the divine force realm. He wasn't even a saint yet. But now, Chu Fengyan neutralized Feng Xingzi's attack. Even if it wasn't Feng Xingzi's killing move, it still shocked him. Amazing. If we don't kill him today, he'll become a big threat in the future. The other Yi Jianzi slowly spoke as killing intent surged from between his brows. It might be impossible for an ordinary person to contend against an ordinary saint at the Imperial Wind Realm, but with their status, they naturally knew about it. For example, in Beimang Academy, some of the true geniuses were indeed able to contend against a saint at the Imperial Wind Realm, but they could only contend against an ordinary saint. Only the true super geniuses of Beimang Academy could contend against a peak saint. How could they believe that Chu Fengmian's aptitude wasn't inferior to the super geniuses of Beimang Academy? If they allowed Chu Fengmian to grow, his future would be limitless. Now that they had become enemies with Chu Fengmian, they had to completely eliminate him. Wu Duzi and Yi Jianzi glanced at each other. They could tell from each other's eyes that they were waiting for an opportunity. Chu Fengmian, your strength is indeed not bad. Feng Xingzi looked at Chu Fengmian with flickering eyes. No one was more surprised than him that his attack was neutralized. However, although Feng Xingzi's attack was a killing move, it wasn't his full strength. Peak Saints naturally didn't lack trump cards. But do you think you can contend against a Peak Saint like this? You're too arrogant. Wind Demon, come out. Feng Xingzi roared furiously. It was as if an extremely powerful force had been awakened within his body. Ling Feng's body was now covered in scales. Wind Demon. Feng Xingzi was actually a demonic cultivator. He turned into a wind demon with scales all over his body. He didn't look like a saint, but more like a demon. This is the power of Wind Demon. Let's see how you can resist it. After transforming into the Wind Demon, Feng Xingzi's strength was several times stronger than before. With a single move, he turned into countless hurricanes. These hurricanes were filled with demonic nature. Every hurricane seemed to have turned into a small wind demon as they charged toward Chu Fengmian. I was wondering who you are. You were just trash from 99 demons? Chu Fengmian harumphed coldly. These three immortals were actually three devils. The nine-demon city was really powerful. Even in a remote place like Wusheng country, there were people from the nine-demon city. Oh, you know who we are? Feng Xingzi's words heard. Laugh Feng Xingzi's out. It seems like you know quite a lot. Since that's the case, then you can become our nourishment. Feng Xingzi, Wu Fengzi Devong. Your fun is blood Fengzi. Feng Xingzi laughed sinisterly. His previous demeanor was nowhere to be seen. He looked like a man-eating demon. Although Nine Demon City was one of the 7 great sects, many of its disciples were demons. Feng Xingzi should be one of them. He came to Wuxing country to proclaim himself as the overlord. Not only you, but Han Yueli Li and countless disciples of Cold Snow Pavilion will become our food. Once we kill you, we'll enter life and death realm. At that time, we'll kill all the experts in Wuxing country. You'll become our food. Feng Xingzi laughed sinisterly. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he charged at Chu Fengmian. Endless madness turned into 2 huge claws, clawing at Chu Fengmian. The moment Feng Xingzi attacked, Wu Duzi and Yi Jianzi, who had been waiting for an opportunity, attacked at the same time. A witchcraft and a sword shot at Chu Fengmian at the same time. The two had been waiting for a long time. They wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Chu Fengmian. Profound, cold 1,000 miles. With a shout, Han Yueli Li, who was beside Chu Fengmian, suddenly attacked. She slashed out with her spiritual sword, which turned into layers of ice to block the sneak attack of Wu Duzi and Yi Jianzi. So what if you have the profound cold body? A little guy at the 7th level of Divine Power Realm dares to attack us? Break for me. Ijinzi looked at Hanuel Li's attack and coldly snorted. His sword slashed at Hanuel Li. Immediately, the layers of ice shattered. The strength of a peak saint was far beyond Hanuel Li's. At the same time, Wu Duzi's witchcraft arrived in front of Chu Fengyan. This witchcraft contained countless strange and mysterious power, which forced Chu Fengyan to the extreme. Kid die. Feng Shengzi laughed sinisterly. His face was incomparably complacent. The three of them attacked together to kill Chu Fengyan. After killing Chu Fengyan and devouring his flesh and blood, their strength would improve further. It would only be a matter of time before they passed the life and death tribulation. Wu Duzi and Yi Jianzi did not attack at the beginning because they wanted to numb Chu Fengyan. Now that they suddenly attacked, the power of their sneak attack was more threatening than the three of them attacking together. Oh no! The old guys from the Three Immortal Island actually attacked together without caring about their status. They even launched a sneak attack. Countless disciples of the cold snow pavilion below could not help but be shocked. They were extremely anxious. Even a pinnacle saint would be killed by such an attack. However, in the next moment, the whole situation changed dramatically. It was as if the power that Chu Fengyan had suppressed for a long time had completely erupted. A huge war dragon claw suddenly fell from the sky. The 1,296 drops of primordial war dragon blood essence in Chu Fengyan's body condensed and turned into a war dragon claw. This war dragon claw even contained a bit of creation power. It was simply Chu Fengyan's strongest move. The bloodline of the primordial battle dragon had fused with the power of creation, turning into an even more powerful battle dragon claw. Every scale on the battle dragon claw contained strange patterns. The world shook because of the claw. The change happened in an instant. The war dragon claw fell with a loud rumble. Feng Shengzi, Wu Duzi, and Yi Jianzi were all sent flying. Countless cracks appeared on their bodies. A moment ago, Chu Fengyan was in a situation where he would definitely die. However, in the blink of an eye, Feng Shengzi, Wu Duzi, and Yi Jianzi were sent flying. Today's 4th update. There will be more on Friday. Chapter 397. What kind of terrifying power is this? True dragon? Ancestral dragon? It's even more terrifying than this. What the hell is this? Damn it. How do we provoke such an opponent? Feng Shengzi, Wu Duzi, and Yi Jianzi were sent flying by the palm strike. Their bodies shattered bit by bit, and each of them had different expressions on their faces. Even Yi Jianzi had a look of regret on his face. Even with the three of them working together, they were still not Chu Fengyan's opponent. Chu Fengyan's strength was much stronger than theirs. How could we lose to him? The three of us can even contend against a life and death realm expert. How could we not be his opponent? Feng Shengzi's voice was trembling. He was extremely shocked. They had heard of Chu Fengyan's various miraculous abilities, but they never imagined that a wind-controlling realm martial artist could contend against three peak saints. It wasn't even a contest. It was a crushing defeat. Chu Fengyan was just accumulating his strength. With a single move, he had thoroughly defeated the three of them. Feng Shengzi, Yi Jianzi, don't regret it. This kid's strength is indeed tyrannical, but it also means that he has countless fortuitous encounters. Wu Duzi said with a malevolent expression, let's attack together and kill him. Once we get his flesh, our future achievements will be limitless. Wu Duzi said viciously. They were clear about Chu Fengyan's character. He would seek revenge for the slightest mistake. Since they had besieged Chu Fengyan today, there was no possibility of reconciliation. It would be better to risk their lives and kill Chu Fengyan. For them, this was a supreme opportunity. As long as they could devour Chu Fengyan's flesh, their future achievements would be limitless. As his voice rang out, Wu Duzi let out a furious roar. Astonishing spiritual energy erupted from his body. Wu Duzi directly turned into a witch demon and charged at Chu Fengyan. All right, Feng Shengzi and Yi Jianzi echoed at the same time. Their strength erupted, and they turned into a wind demon and a sword demon. The three demons struck out at the same time. Their demonic auras were terrifying. The entire sky was filled with boundless demonic aura, causing the entire sky to look like a demonic realm. Demonic chi overflowed into the sky. It was like a scene of purgatory. Ultimate Sky Fiend. As the three of them joined forces, an incomparably huge devil appeared amidst the demonic aura that filled the sky. He threw out a punch, which swept up the endless demonic chi and punched toward Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's face was calm. Facing the demonic chi that filled the sky, there was no change in his expression. He took a step forward, and the scarlet flame sword suddenly appeared in his hand. He pointed the tip of his sword and slashed out. You want to fight against the power of this heavenly demon. When Feng Shengzi, Wu Duzi, and Yi Jianzi saw this, they couldn't help but sneer. This was truly arrogant. Their heavenly demon power was close to the level of life and death realm. The combined power of three peak saints was enough to destroy heaven and earth. Boom! A sword and a fist suddenly met in midair. Boundless demonic aura suddenly spread to Chu Fengmian's body, encircling him and eroding his body. Brat, you're too arrogant. He dared to resist the power of the heavenly demon. You're courting death. Feng Shengzi sneered when he saw this. With such demonic chi, Chu Fengmian would undoubtedly be severely injured, even if he didn't die. However, in the next moment, the endless demonic chi around Chu Fengmian dispersed, and Chu Fengmian walked out from it. He was unharmed. How is this possible? Feng Shengzi looked at Chu Fengmian, his eyes almost popping out. The endless demonic chi swept out, and even a peak saint would die or be severely injured. However, Chu Fengmian walked out unscathed. Their full strength and the joint attack of three peak saints couldn't do anything to Chu Fengmian. They couldn't even hurt Chu Fengmian at all. The three of them were invincible figures in victorious Wushuang country. They were the true overlords of a region, but even when they joined forces, they couldn't hurt Chu Fengmian at all. This scene was simply shocking to the extreme. Young Master's strength is much stronger than before. Moreover, the spiritual power in his body is even purer and stronger than the power of the primordial battle dragon. The primordial dragon turtle looked at Chu Fengmian from below, his eyes filled with shock. The primordial dragon turtle knew that Chu Fengmian had the bloodline of the primordial battle dragon, and his strength must be incomparably strong. However, just now, the power that burst out from Chu Fengmian's body was much stronger than the power of the primordial battle dragon. Now, Chu Fengmian had more fortuitous encounters in the Qin Empire country. You three little bastards, do you really think that a third-rate demonic skill can hurt me? Chu Fengmian looked at the three of them and sneered. He moved, and with one step, he suddenly held the scarlet flame sword in his hand and slashed at the three of them. Hiss! As the sword slashed out, it instantly turned into thousands of sword chi. 1,000 sword strikes. The moment Chu Fengmian's sword edge struck out, the sky was filled with endless sword chi. Streaks of sword chi instantly shattered the heavenly demon that the three of them had conjured together. At the same time, the sword chi also slashed at Feng Shengzi, Wu Duzi, and Yi Jianzi. I am a sword demon. I don't believe that your swordsmanship is comparable to mine. Yi Jianzi snorted, and his body turned into a long sword. The long sword contained an endless amount of blood chi, and no one knew how many people it had killed in the past. The sword essence burst out violently. It turned into endless sword chi and slashed at Chu Fengmian. You puny sword demon, how dare you compare yourself with me? Seeing Yi Jianzi turn into the sword demon, Chu Fengmian sneered, and his eyes were full of disdain. He was once the #1 sword Dao expert, not to mention a puny sword demon. Even the ancestor of the sword demon would not dare to compete with Chu Fengmian in sword Dao. He was simply courting death. Infinite primordial chaos. 3-foot blade. The sword in Chu Fengmian's hand moved, and he slowly slashed out. Hiss! A ray of sword chi streaked across the sky. All of a sudden, the countless sword auras in the area were all shattered. The long sword that Yi Jianzi had transformed into was directly severed at the waist. One slash, just one slash. Yi Jianzi, who had used all his strength, was killed by one slash. Sweeping 8 desolation. With one slash, the wind swept away the clouds, and everything that was Yi Jianzi was destroyed. A peak saint like him had fallen. Today's update. I came back late at night. Chapter 398. Impossible. This is impossible. When Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi saw that Yi Jianzi had been killed in a single strike, their eyes were filled with shock. They were clear about Yi Jianzi's strength. Even life and death experts wouldn't dare to say that they could kill him in a single strike. The three of them were on par with each other. Now that Yi Jianzi was dead, they became nervous. Chu Fengmian, we've offended you this time. It's our fault. We'll leave now. Feng Shengzi's eyes flickered as he suddenly spoke to Chu Fengmian. The moment he spoke, he turned his head and exchanged a glance with Wu Duzi. Unexpectedly, he was planning to leave. Yi Jianzi had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. With just the two of them, they weren't Chu Fengmian's opponent. You want to leave? Chu Fengmian sneered and suddenly slashed out with his sword. Sword chi filled the sky and immediately sealed off all the space in the surroundings. Chu Fengmian, what's the meaning of this? Could it be that you really want to fight to the death today? Wu Duzi looked at Chu Fengmian and coldly said, We're in the wrong this time, but don't be unforgiving. Since you know that we're from Nine Demon City, you should know the price of offending us. Wu Duzi sneered. Yi Jianzi's death is our apology. Don't be unforgiving. Young people should know when to advance and retreat. After Wu Duzi finished speaking, he glanced at Feng Shengzi and said in a low voice, Let's go. Unforgiving? Threatening? Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a cold smile. The sword chi that filled the sky became even more powerful, directly locking the two of them in. You two are nothing but trash from Nine Demon City. You want to use Nine Demon City to threaten this Chu? Moreover, I'm not afraid of Nine Demon City. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. If I didn't have the strength today, I'm afraid that you two wouldn't have let me go. Now, you want to leave unscathed? Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi saw that the situation wasn't good and wanted to leave. How could there be such a good thing in the world? The moment the three of them arrived, they immediately offered such excessive conditions in an attempt to intimidate Chu Fengmian. Now that their strength was insufficient, how could they possibly escape unscathed? Chu Fengmian sneered. If you don't give me an explanation, don't even think about leaving today. Give me an explanation? Chu Fengmian, what kind of explanation do you want? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Feng Shengzi snorted coldly. The meaning behind those words was that Chu Fengmian had taken the initiative to concede. The Nine Demon City was one of the 7 great sects of the 9 regions, and its status was even higher than the North Sea Academy. The two of them didn't believe that Chu Fengmian wouldn't be afraid of the prestige of the Nine Demon City. It's simple. Since you've offended me, I'll hang your heads in front of the Cold Snow Pavilion to remind people of the price they have to pay for offending me. Chu Fengmian slowly opened his mouth. Although his words were calm, the tone of his voice was resolute and decisive. This sentence did not conceal the killing intent within. What? Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi, who had a complacent look on their faces, suddenly changed their expressions after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. Their hearts beat wildly. Borrow their skulls? Not to mention saints, even life and death realm experts would die if they lost their heads. The meaning behind his words was simply that he was going to kill the two of them. Wu Duzi looked at Chu Fengmian and furiously shouted, Chu Fengmian, don't go too far. Too far? The ones who went too far today are you two. You besieged the Cold Snow Pavilion and wanted to kill me. Now, you want to leave unscathed? What qualifications do you have? A trace of killing intent flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. He strode forward and directly rushed towards the two of them. If the two of you don't agree today, then I'll personally take your heads. Chu Fengmian's figure moved. His speed was astonishingly fast. Almost in an instant, Chu Fengmian arrived in front of Wu Duzi and slashed his sword at Wu Duzi. This sword was astonishingly fast. The moment Wu Duzi reacted, it was already in front of him. Attack! Fight with him. Today, we'll fight to the death with him. Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi furiously shouted at the same time. They could already see that Chu Fengmian would definitely not let the two of them go today. Now, they could only fight with all their might. The two of them simultaneously struck their own chests with their palms and spat out a large amount of essence blood. The essence blood began to burn crazily, making a final struggle. Chu Fengmian will perish together with you. Wu, Du, Feng. Today will burn our essence blood to completely kill you. Feng Xingzi and Wu Duzi shouted at the same time. Two waves of spiritual energy erupted at the same time, sweeping everything like a huge wave and bombarding Chu Fengmian. The two of them no longer had the slightest intention of escaping. At this critical moment of life and death, the two of them erupted with their most powerful strength, breaking through their own limits. The limit of a human was madness. Not to mention that the two of them were originally devils. Each of them went crazy, erupting all their potential and squeezing it out. The billowing spiritual energy turned into a huge wave, pressing down on Chu Fengmian. The huge wave was the condensation of all the trump cards in their lives. They put all their strength into the huge wave. They put all their hope in the huge wave, turning it into their strongest attack to completely kill Chu Fengmian. The two peak saints put their lives on the line, and the power was extremely terrifying. The surrounding space was about to be torn apart by the huge wave. At the same time, the moment the huge wave was released, a supreme spiritual energy suddenly broke through the air. A sudden change occurred. All of a sudden, a golden figure broke through the space and appeared in the sky. The golden figure was extremely majestic, and his strength was even stronger than Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi. The golden figure appeared, broke through the void, and threw a punch at Chu Fengmian. The punch seemed to have been condensed for a long time, and it contained the golden figure's full strength. It suddenly appeared to help Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi kill Chu Fengmian. Invincible Divine Fist. The golden figure's temperament was definitely that of an extremely arrogant person. He was extremely domineering and looked down on everyone. The moment he attacked, it was the true Tao of a tyrant, the Tao of invincibility. Zhao Wudi, you're finally out. The sudden appearance of the golden figure did not surprise Chu Fengmian in the slightest, as if he had predicted all of this. Thank you for your reward. Thank you for that woman. Thank you, Playboy, destined to die alone. Second update for today. Chapter 399. Zhao Wudi, you finally appeared. Chu Fengmian's words directly revealed the identity of the golden figure. This golden figure was none other than the #1 expert of Qin Empire, Zhao Wudi. When Chu Fengmian was fighting with Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi, he had already sensed that there were other people hiding in the surroundings. Zhao Wudi's invincible Tao allowed Chu Fengmian to see through his identity in an instant. Zhao Wudi had always been in Jiushi Empire, fighting for treasures and preparing to break through to life and death realm. However, it wasn't as if he didn't know what was happening in Qin Empire. This time, he secretly came to Wusheng country to look for an opportunity to sneak attack Chu Fengmian. Now that Chu Fengmian was fighting with Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi, he suddenly appeared and joined forces with Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi to kill Chu Fengmian. Who is this person? Zhao Wudi's sudden appearance puzzled Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi. However, when they saw Zhao Wudi attacking Chu Fengmian, Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi revealed smiles on their faces. Now, no matter who came, as long as they were Chu Fengmian's enemy, they were their friends. This person's strength is so strong, much stronger than us. I'm afraid he's a half-step life and death realm expert, someone who can cross the life and death tribulation at any time. Let's join forces with him and kill this kid first. Wu Duzi's eyes turned as he shouted loudly. Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi released all of their spiritual energy and condensed it into a huge wave. A huge wave and an invincible divine fist. These two extremely terrifying spiritual energies attacked Chu Fengmian at the same time. Kid, let's see how you resist this time. You have too many fortuitous encounters. Today I'll kill you. With your fortuitous encounters, not to mention a small Qin empire, I'll conquer countless countries. I'll become a great emperor. Zhao Wudi coldly snorted. The invincible Dao strengthened his body and condensed on his fist wind. An invincible divine fist bombarded Chu Fengmian. So what if you know? Let's see how you're going to break out of this deadly situation. Zhao Wudi's strength was even stronger than the Qin emperor. He was already infinitely close to the life and death realm. As long as he was willing, he could pass through the life and death tribulation in an instant. With such an expert in Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi, these two pinnacle saints, the three of them attacked Chu Fengmian at the same time. No saint could possibly survive. It was an absolute death trap. Zhao Wudi had waited for a long time just to let Chu Fengmian fall into this hopeless situation. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian with a fatal blow. Zhao Wudi was a character whose name shook the entire Qin Empire. He claimed to be invincible. Now that such a character was plotting to ambush Chu Fengmian, he was definitely extremely dangerous. This massive wave was constantly suppressing Chu Fengmian's body. At the same time, the invincible divine fist was already hurtling towards Chu Fengmian. Zhao Wudi, do you think I'm not on guard against you? Your schemes will not be able to hide from me. Chu Fengmian sneered. He had been waiting for Zhao Wudi to make a move for a long time. Zhao Wudi's strength was enough to contend with Chu Fengmian. If he wanted to escape, Chu Fengmian could not do anything to him. Therefore, Chu Fengmian used this trick to lure the snake out of its hole. He was waiting for Zhao Wudi to make a move. Now that Zhao Wudi had appeared, there was no possibility for him to escape. Chu Fengmian would not give him another chance to escape. Sword, Lord, Heaven, Earth. Sword intent burst out from Chu Fengmian's body. This sword intent seemed to connect with the heaven and earth. In an instant, the whole surroundings turned into a world of swords. Streams of spiritual power condensed into spiritual swords. There were more than 100 million of these spiritual swords. These spiritual swords sealed the surrounding area, turning it into a cage. At the same time, countless spiritual swords slashed toward Zhao Wudi, Feng Shengzi, and Wu Duzi. Each of these spiritual swords contained the power of the war dragon and a trace of the power of creation. These two extremely powerful forces were merged into one by Chu Fengmian. The power of each spiritual sword was more powerful than many pinnacle saints' desperate attacks. Moreover, there were more than 100 million spiritual swords. This number was almost endless. This was simply a huge trap that wanted to catch the three of them in one fell swoop. Domain? No, this is sword intent. Sword intent can affect the heaven and earth. How terrifying must one's understanding of sword principle be to achieve this? Zhao Wudi looked at the changes around him, and his face became extremely ugly. He originally thought that his mantis stalking the cicada would launch a sneak attack to kill Chu Fengmian. However, he did not expect that all of this was within Chu Fengmian's calculations. Chu Fengmian had secretly condensed this sword formation long ago, waiting for Zhao Wudi to appear so that he could catch them in one fell swoop. We've been tricked. Let's attack together and break this sword formation. Let's run away first and find a chance to kill this kid. Zhao Wudi shouted at Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi. He realized in an instant that they were no match for Chu Fengmian in this sword formation. This spiritual sword was enough to cause great harm to them, let alone this spiritual sword that was inexhaustible. They could only run away, otherwise they would definitely die under this sword formation today. Invincible Dao. Invincible 9 forms. Sword, saber, spear, axe, hammer, claw, spear, halberd, bow. Zhao Wudi's invincible Dao was condensed to the extreme. 9 invincible weapons were condensed and bombarded at the sword formation at the same time. He wanted to forcefully break an opening. However, Chu Fengmian would not give him such a chance. Trying to escape? 10,000 swords in one. Demon Slayer sword formation. Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and countless spiritual swords condensed together, forming a giant sword that was 1,000 meters long. As the giant sword fell, the sword edge flashed, and the 9 invincible weapons were instantly destroyed. Zhao Wudi's invincible Dao could not compete with Chu Fengmian's sword Dao. The moment the giant sword fell, it was as if heaven and earth were about to be destroyed. No, we are all overlords of a region, peak saints, existences that are one step away from becoming immortal and indestructible. How can we be defeated? Feng Shengzi and Wu Duzi's faces were filled with madness, and they tried their best to resist. However, any resistance they put up was meaningless in the face of the 1,000-meter-long greatsword. As the sword flashed past, the bodies of the two were instantly killed. Their bodies were completely obliterated, leaving only two heads behind. Chapter 400. This was the son of the wind and the son of voodoo. Two pinnacle saints died in Chu Fengmian's hands just like that. This young master's strength, what level has he reached? The ancient dragon turtle raised its head and looked at the scene in the sky. It was already stammering, not knowing what to say. These two weren't weaklings. Two pinnacle saints, invincible figures in victorious Wu country, died in Chu Fengmian's hands just like that. The remaining Zhao Wudi's face was also extremely panicked. Although these two were far weaker than him, they were still pinnacle saints after all. Yet they died just like that. The three of them couldn't contend against Chu Fengmian. Now that he was the only one left, how could he contend against Chu Fengmian? Fight! Zhao Wudi raised his head and looked at the 1,000-meter-long giant sword descending. His eyes revealed a trace of sword intent. Suddenly, the spiritual power on his body surged crazily. The dark clouds in the sky immediately scattered, and then the entire horizon turned into countless tribulation clouds. Life and death tribulation. Zhao Wudi summoned his full strength and summoned the life and death tribulation. He originally didn't plan to pass the life and death tribulation, but now, this was his last resort. Zhao Wudi didn't plan to directly break through the life and death tribulation. Although he could easily pass it, the more he accumulated in the divine power realm, the greater the benefits of passing the life and death tribulation. Therefore, Zhao Wudi didn't want to pass the life and death tribulation until the last moment. Only then could he obtain the most benefits. But now, in front of Chu Fengmian's 1,000-meter-long giant sword, if he didn't break through, he would have no way to contend against Chu Fengmian. Now, Zhao Wudi was forced into a desperate situation. He planned to directly pass the life and death tribulation and step into the life and death realm to deal with Chu Fengmian. Once he stepped into the life and death realm, Zhao Wudi's strength would immediately skyrocket by 10 times. At that time, it would be difficult for Chu Fengmian to deal with him. Want to break through the life and death tribulation. Chu Fengmian saw through Zhao Wudi's actions with a glance. The moment the tribulation clouds condensed, his figure moved. Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly flew into the sky and arrived at the tribulation cloud. Immediately, boundless killing intent erupted. The scarlet flame sword in his hand condensed a boundless amount of blood chi, which transformed into a 10,000-foot-long blood scar and slashed towards the tribulation clouds. Calamity destruction. Now, Chu Fengmian was going to destroy this life and death calamity. As long as he could destroy the calamity of life and death, Zhao Wudi was unable to step into the life and death realm. This was a drastic measure. Little bastard. He wanted to destroy the tribulation. Not so easy. The invincible god of war. Zhao Wudi's spiritual energy burst out, turning into countless golden rays that flew toward Chu Fengmian, trying to restrain him. The moment this life and death calamity appeared, the spiritual energy in his body started to transform crazily, causing his strength to skyrocket. As long as he could delay them for a while, his strength would increase by a few notches. Demon Slayer Sword Formation. Give me the formation. Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and the 1,000-meter-long sword emitted several sword edges, which cut through the countless golden rays. At the same time, Chu Fengmian slashed out a blood scar, which also cut through the tribulation clouds. This slash destroyed more than half of the tribulation clouds, but the remaining power of the tribulation clouds still fused into Zhao Wudi's body. Zhao Wudi's strength crazily rose. Although he had yet to step into the life and death realm, his strength was several times more powerful than before. Little bastard, you made me waste the opportunity of the life and death calamity. Today, I'll definitely kill you. I'll tear your corpse into 10,000 pieces. Zhao Wudi suddenly exploded, and the killing intent in his eyes reached the extreme. Today, Chu Fengyan had destroyed more than half of his life and death calamity, causing him to lose more than half of the benefits of crossing the calamity. Unable to step into the life and death realm in one go, he could only continue to bitterly cultivate. However, everything he had paid today was worth it. As long as he could kill Chu Fengyan and obtain the endless benefits on his body, he would be able to get everything he had paid. Zhao Wudi's figure moved, dodging the demon's Slayer sword formation, and arrived in front of Chu Fengyan in an instant. His invincible Dao was condensed to the extreme. The current Zhao Wudi was a true invincible martial god. Even if I've only crossed half of the life and death calamity, I'm still not someone you can contend against right now. Invincible under the heavens. Zhao Wudi angrily roared. He was really angry. Chu Fengyan had destroyed his life and death calamity, causing all his preparations to go down the drain. Now, his only thought was to kill Chu Fengyan and seize his fortuitous encounter to make up for his losses. Endless spiritual energy erupted from Zhao Wudi's body, which was actually enough to contend against the countless spiritual swords around him. After crossing the life and death calamity, Zhao Wudi's strength was simply no longer the same as before. He had only crossed a small part of the life and death calamity. If Zhao Wudi had completely crossed the life and death calamity, his strength would be several times more terrifying. Life and death calamity was a calamity, but it was also a benefit that warriors yearned for even in their dreams. As long as one crossed the life and death calamity, their strength would skyrocket by 10 times or even dozens of times. The current Zhao Wudi was infinitely close to the life and death realm, surpassing the divine power realm. Spiritual energy erupted from his body, causing a whirlwind to sweep away the clouds, directly crushing the countless spiritual swords around him. So what if you've crossed the life and death calamity? Today, you'll still die without a doubt. Chu Fengyan sneered and directly went up to meet Zhao Wudi. Even if Zhao Wudi's strength had skyrocketed, he wouldn't be afraid. Zhao Wudi's strength had indeed skyrocketed, but in the life and death calamity just now, Chu Fengyan had also gained some benefits. Half of the power of Zhao Wudi's life and death calamity, the core of which was the power of creation, had been directly absorbed by Chu Fengyan and integrated into the sword embryo. It could be said that Chu Fengyan had directly taken half of Zhao Wudi's benefits. How could Chu Fengyan be afraid of him? You're courting death. I'll let you experience the power of someone who has crossed the life and death calamity. Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, Zhao Wudi coldly snorted and displayed the invincible divine fist once again. This time, the invincible divine fist that Zhao Wudi had struck out actually condensed a martial god behind him. The martial god's power was added to his body, and when he struck out a punch, it seemed as if the heavens and earth were about to be subdued. With this punch, he wanted to completely suppress and subdue Chu Fengyan. Creation. Chu Fengyan's figure was ice cold as he indifferently spat out these two words. He waved the scarlet flame sword in his hand, and suddenly, a sword chi shot out. This sword chi seemed ordinary, but the moment it was struck out, it engulfed the entire heaven and earth. The sharpness of the invincible divine fist was overshadowed by this sword chi. The fourth night watch ended. Chapter 4:01. The seemingly inconspicuous sword chi covered the sky the moment it was released. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out along with the sword chi. A deafening explosion took place instantly. The entire heavenly fortune tower was filled with the sound of the explosion. Just a moment ago, the invincible divine fist was still aggressive and wanted to suppress everything. But now, in front of this sword chi, all of its sharpness was covered. The two forces faced each other. In an instant, they had clashed thousands of times. The invincible divine fist was directly shattered, and the countless forces within it were all devoured. It was not over yet. The remaining forces were directly condensed into a fist and blasted towards Zhao Wudi. Zhao Wudi was forced to retreat repeatedly. His chest was shattered, and he spat out a lot of blood. Impossible. What kind of power is this? How can it block my invincible divine fist? While retreating rapidly, Zhao Wudi's face was still full of disbelief. He had now passed the life and death tribulation. He was already a half-step life and death realm figure. Not to mention a saint, even a true life and death realm warrior could contend with him. Chu Fengyan was only a wind-controlling realm warrior, and he had not even stepped into the divine power realm. The result of their fight should be obvious. Zhao Wudi had never thought that he would lose. Now that he had forcibly passed the life and death tribulation and his strength had increased, he was still not a match for Chu Fengyan. He could feel that Chu Fengyan's strength was not as good as his. However, the purity of Chu Fengyan's power far surpassed his. Now that Zhao Wudi had advanced to the half-step life and death realm, he could naturally feel the power of fortune on Chu Fengyan's body. However, he did not know where the power of fortune on Chu Fengyan's body came from. And where did it come from? The power of fortune had always been the most mysterious force in the 9 regions. With Zhao Wudi's current knowledge, he was still far from being able to come into contact with it. However, he could feel the power of creation. Where did this kid come from? Not only did he learn the Dragon Clan's martial skills, but he also has such a strange power. With the strength of Wind Control Realm, he is able to contend against half-step life and death realm warriors. Even those monsters from the North Sea Academy might not be able to do so. Zhao Wudi looked at Chu Fengyan and sighed in his heart. Chu Fengyan's aptitude was indeed monstrous. However, his expression quickly returned to normal. So what if his aptitude was monstrous? Geniuses who hadn't matured were meaningless. Today, he was a half-step life and death realm peerless expert. He didn't believe that he couldn't deal with a puny wind-controlling realm martial artist. Chu Fengyan, your aptitude is indeed terrifying. A person like you shouldn't exist in this world. Zhao Wudi's aura was overbearing. He took a step forward and shouted loudly. Today you will die in my hands. The invincible sun. Zhao Wudi took a big step forward and rushed to Chu Fengyan's face in a flash. Then he suddenly punched out again. Boom! Another huge explosion sounded out. With Zhao Wudi's current strength, a casual attack from him was enough to shake the heavens and earth. If he returned to the Qin Empire now, he would probably be able to sweep through the Qin Empire within 3 days. His fist punched out in the air. In an instant, it smashed towards Chu Fengyan. He used his strongest power to suppress Chu Fengyan. The invincible Dao was to suppress the opponent. The weaker the opponent, the more powerful Zhao Wudi's invincible Dao would be. He attacked fiercely. In a breath, he threw out hundreds of punches. They covered the sky and the sun, making it impossible for anyone to dodge. The invincible Dao is just a joke. Why would a real invincible person need to use this kind of aura to fight? Chu Fengyan laughed loudly. Facing the countless fist winds that covered the sky, he didn't dodge. Instead, his mind moved. 1,296 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence boiled in Chu Fengyan's body. The power of the ancient battle dragon blood essence was squeezed to the extreme and erupted with the strongest power. Battle dragon dancing in the firmament. The power of the ancient battle dragon blood essence merged into Chu Fengyan's body and turned him into an ancient battle dragon. Chu Fengyan transformed into an ancient battle dragon. He let out a long roar and rushed to the 9 heavens. The dragon body danced, and the fist winds that covered the sky were all broken. The more ancient battle dragon blood essence in Chu Fengyan's bloodline, the clearer Chu Fengyan's control over the ancient battle dragon's power. Turning into a dragon and dissolving the fist winds that covered the sky was just a matter of a breath. After dissolving the fist winds that covered the sky, Chu Fengyan withdrew his power. He held the scarlet flame sword and stepped out. Endless killing intent gathered on Chu Fengyan's body. His killing intent soared to the sky. It was like purgatory on earth. Everyone present felt the endless killing intent from Chu Fengmian's body and could not help but tremble in fear. Chu Fengmian's body suddenly flew out. He was shrouded in endless killing intent. Streaks of blood qi also began to condense. It merged with the blade of Chu Fengmian's sword, making the scarlet flame sword look blood-red. Kill. Chu Fengmian lightly spat out the word kill. As soon as the word kill came out, the sword moved accordingly. 10,000 feet of blood mark instantly erupted. Chu Fengmian's sword art of massacre had already been practiced to the point of perfection. Everyone looked at the sky and saw Chu Fengmian's appearance. It was as if the person who made the move was no longer Chu Fengmian. Instead, it was a god of massacre, an ancient god of massacre. This sword was fierce to the extreme. Zhao Wudi's eyes were full of horror. Even his undefeatable Dao began to waver after witnessing the terrifying incident. No, I'm Zhao Wudi. I'm an invincible figure. I'm a half-step life in death realm. How can I lose? Zhao Wudi roared again and again. Endless spiritual energy erupted from his body. The mountains and rivers shook, and the horizon trembled. I'm invincible. I'll never be defeated. Zhao Wudi's mouth spurted out a large amount of blood essence, which began to burn crazily. The spiritual energy in his body began to surge as he made a futile attempt to make a final struggle. The 9 invincible weapons once again condensed into a huge formation, trying to resist the sword art of massacre. Zhao Wudi, you've schemed against me for a long time, and now you want to sneak attack me. Today is the day you die. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. Zhao Wudi could not escape the fate of being killed today, even if he resisted. Chu Fengmian would not give Zhao Wudi any chance. His sword art of massacre was the real killing move. Impossible. I won't be defeated. I won't be defeated. Zhao Wudi's body trembled crazily as if he was afraid. He muttered to himself, but the invincible Dao in his body had been shattered. First update today. Thank you for Shang Xinpa's reward. Chapter 402. Zhao Wudi's undefeatable Dao was originally undefeatable in his heart. That was why he had such an aura that brought him endless power. His undefeatable Dao had been completely destroyed by Chu Fengmian. All of his sources of power had been completely destroyed. Die, Chu Fengmian said coldly. Zhao Wudi's death sentence was pronounced. The 10,000 zhong long blood scar cut through the sky and slashed down. The 9 undefeatable weapons in front of Zhao Wudi were all crushed in an instant. No! Zhao Wudi roared fiercely. His heart was filled with unwillingness, and he wanted to resist. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. With a thought, the power of the blood scar increased by a lot. In an instant, Zhao Wudi's figure had been completely swallowed by the blood scar. His body suddenly exploded, turning into a bloody mist that was completely devoured by Chu Fengmian. He came here to practice the slaughter sword art. As Chu Fengmian devoured Zhao Wudi's essence blood, Chu Fengmian's killing intent became a lot denser. After all, Zhao Wudi was a half-step life and death expert. If Chu Fengmian hadn't destroyed his life and death calamity, he would have definitely stepped into the life and death realm. His essence blood was definitely more valuable than many heavenly wondrous treasures. Zhao Wudi had fallen. The #1 expert of Qin Empire, a half-step life and death expert who had passed the life and death calamity, had fallen in Chu Fengmian's hands. Countless people below looked at the scene in the sky in a daze. For a moment, they were all stunned. Crossing nearly 2 major realms, killing a half-step life and death expert with the cultivation base of wind-controlling realm. This kind of aptitude was simply monstrous. Such an expert who had passed the life and death calamity died, just like that. Han Yueli looked at Chu Fengmian from the side and couldn't help but sigh. Zhao Wudi, such an absolute expert, had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. When Chu Fengmian had just left victorious martial country, a peak saint was enough to force Chu Fengmian to retreat. But now a half-step life and death expert who had survived a life and death calamity had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. Isn't Jinlin a fish in a pond? Once it encounters a storm, it will transform into a dragon. The growth of Chu Fengyan's strength was much more terrifying than before. Who knows how much Zhao Wudi gained from the ruins of the kingdom of Joshi? Chu Fengyan made a grabbing motion with his hand towards the bloody mist. Within it, an empty ring was caught by Chu Fengyan. The reason why Zhao Wudi wasn't in the Qin Empire was because he was fighting for the treasures in the ruins of the Joshi Empire. Since he had returned this time, it was natural that he had gained a lot. Chu Fengyan poured his spiritual energy into the spatial ring. The spatial ring opened, and countless strange objects appeared before Chu Fengyan's eyes. Crack! Just as Chu Fengyan opened the empty ring and took inventory of the items within, a beam of light suddenly flew out. In the empty ring, it was as if something had awakened. Suddenly, spiritual energy erupted, and it turned into a streak of light, ready to fly out. What is this? Trying to escape? Chu Fengyan raised his eyebrows and waved his hand. Suddenly, countless spiritual energy transformed into an inescapable net, surrounding the thing in an instant. However, this thing actually erupted with an extremely vigorous energy. It seemed to be resisting Chu Fengyan, and it actually bombarded the inescapable net that Chu Fengyan had set up. This power? Chu Fengyan's eyes suddenly turned. The vigorous power that erupted from this thing was very familiar to Chu Fengyan. Suddenly, a burst of spiritual energy erupted from Chu Fengyan's empty ring. The Emperor Jar? Chu Fengyan waved his hand and broke the endless spiritual energy that had gathered around the thing. Inside, it was the broken remains of Jar. It was exactly the same power as the Emperor Jar in Chu Fengyan's hand. Chu Fengyan was surprised at first, and then he was overjoyed. Chu Fengyan had only obtained a fragment of the Emperor Jar. It was only a quarter of the real Emperor Jar, and the power that erupted was not even 1/10 of the Emperor Jar's power. 1/10 of the Emperor Jar's power was already so strong that it had helped Chu Fengyan through countless dangers. Zhao Wudi's empty ring actually contained a part of the Emperor Jar. However, this Emperor Jar was not as good as the one in Chu Fengyan's hand. Obviously, it still had a part of the power. The moment Chu Fengyan opened the empty ring, it actually intended to escape. Fortunately, Chu Fengyan reacted in time and sealed the surrounding space, making it impossible for the Emperor Jar to escape. Battle Dragon Power. Coercion. Chu Fengyan's mind moved, and he immediately activated the ancient Battle Dragon power in his bloodline. Endless coercion suppressed the Emperor Jar. Dragon coercion was one of the most powerful coercion in the 9 regions. However, the mortal Emperor Jar wasn't affected in the slightest when the battle dragons might press down on it. As expected of an extreme path immortal weapon. An extreme path immortal weapon with power is indeed much more difficult to deal with. The battle dragon coercion had no effect on the fragment of the Emperor Jar. Chu Fengyan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Fortunately, the first fragment that Chu Fengyan obtained did not contain much power, so Chu Fengyan was able to refine it immediately. If the fragment of the Emperor Jar had power at that time, given Chu Fengyan's strength at that time, it would have been able to escape in an instant. Then, Chu Fengyan would have been like a cooked duck flying away. However, Chu Fengyan's strength was not what it used to be. Even though the battle dragon coercion could not suppress it, Chu Fengyan's expression did not change at all. Now that he had an even greater power, he could use it to suppress the Emperor Jar. Power of creation. Condense. Chu Fengyan's mind communicated with the sword embryo, and suddenly, waves of power of creation burst out. The force of creation immediately turned into a 7-floored pagoda, suppressing Qin Nan. The fragment of the Emperor Jar obviously still wanted to resist, but under the 7-story pagoda, its power was suppressed to the extreme and could not be released at all. Subdue. Chu Fengyan snorted coldly. The power of the 7-story pagoda increased by several times. Immediately, the power of the fragment of the Emperor Jar was completely subdued and fell into Chu Fengyan's hands. Chu Fengyan made a prompt decision and integrated a stream of spiritual energy into the fragment of the Emperor Jar. Immediately, the fragment of the Emperor Jar was subdued by Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengmian finally breathed a sigh of relief. It was not easy to obtain the fragment of the Emperor jar. If it flew away in front of Chu Fengmian would really want to cry. However, this was only the first step. What Chu Fengmian needed to do now was to restore the power of the Emperor jar. Chapter 4:03. Now that Chu Fengmian had the two fragments of the Emperor jar, he could combine them and restore more of the jar's power. The addition of the fragments of the Emperor jar wasn't as simple as 1 plus 1. Every fragment could restore twice the power. If Chu Fengmian could obtain all the fragments of the Emperor jar and recondense it, it would be a great adventure for him. After all, the Emperor jar was an ancient human emperor's spirit tool, an extreme immortal weapon. If he could obtain the Emperor jar, he would be able to kill a life and death expert with ease. However, this was just a thought. Chu Fengmian had only obtained half of the fragments of the Emperor jar, and the other half was nowhere to be found. Moreover, even if he was given a complete Emperor jar, he wouldn't be able to activate it with his current strength. Even a life and death expert couldn't activate a complete extreme immortal weapon. Chu Fengmian was lucky enough to obtain this half of the fragment. It was actually obtained by Zhao Wudi, and then Zhao Wudi took the initiative to throw away his life. Only then did Chu Fengmian obtain it. The other fragments were nowhere to be found. In the vast 9 domains, finding all of them was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, even if I can gather half of them, it's still a great opportunity. Chu Fengmian looked at the two fragments of the Emperor jar in his hand and shot out a stream of spiritual energy. Under this stream of spiritual energy, the two fragments of the Emperor jar began to fuse and condense. The Emperor jar was broken in the ancient times for unknown reasons, but it was still of the same origin. With Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy, the two fragments began to fuse. The spiritual energy within was also rising steadily. Fortunately, this Zhao Wudi didn't activate the power of the Emperor jar. Otherwise, if he suddenly used it to launch a sneak attack, although he wouldn't be able to defeat me, he would still have a chance to escape unscathed. Chu Fengmian controlled his spiritual energy to fuse the two fragments of the Emperor jar as he thought inwardly. Although this was only a fragment of the Emperor jar, it was enough to drain the spiritual energy of a half-step life and death expert. If Chu Fengmian didn't have the divine vein, he wouldn't have dared to activate it. However, even with the support of the divine vein, Chu Fengmian still had a breath of time to activate it. As for Zhao Wudi, it was even more impossible for him to activate the Emperor's jar. With his spiritual energy, he was far from being able to activate it. These two fragments of the Emperor jar are of the same origin. There's no rejection when they fuse, there's a feeling of success. Chu Fengmian felt that the two fragments of the Emperor jar in his hand had already fused into one. Although its appearance didn't seem to have changed much, and it was still a broken jar, the power contained within was several times stronger than the previous two added together. The Emperor Fengmian's power, the Emperor jars. Chu Fengmian's, This was a great opportunity. Zhao Wudi had been frantically searching for treasures in the ancient ruins of Jiuxi Nation, and had even obtained the Emperor jar. Now, it had all fallen into Chu Fengmian's hands. The Emperor jar's strength meant that Chu Fengmian had a new trump card. Even if a true life and death expert came, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be afraid. What kind of spiritual weapon is this? How can it be so strong? It's even stronger than the rich, lush monument. Han Wuli blinked as she looked at Chu Fengmian. She couldn't help but ask. She knew that Chu Fengmian had the rich, lush monument, a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Now, the Emperor jar's power was even stronger than the rich, lush monument. This is the Emperor jar, an extreme immortal weapon. It's just a fragment. Compared to an extreme immortal weapon, it's still far from it. Chu Fengmian said calmly. He didn't hide anything from Han Wuli. Extreme immortal weapon. These words caused Han Yuli's heart to tremble. An extreme immortal weapon was a legendary existence. Now, it was right in front of her eyes. Although it was just a fragment, it was indeed an extreme immortal weapon. This is an opportunity one encountered in Qin Emperor Nation. There's no need to talk about it now. Chu Fengmian looked at Han Wuli and said calmly. All of a sudden, the surrounding space shattered, and one figure after another walked out. There were dozens of them, and all of them were saints. What? Why are there so many saints here? Dozens of saints? Even the entire victorious martial nation doesn't have that many. Suddenly, a surprised voice came from below. There were actually dozens of voices that suddenly appeared. Even Han Yueli's expression abruptly changed, and her nerves immediately tensed up. A few dozen saints were an enormous force that was sufficient to destroy a kingdom. Their appearance caused everyone to feel great danger. Don't worry. Looking at the nervous Han Yueli next to him, Chu Fengmian suddenly said calmly. The dozens of saints appeared and looked around. When they saw Chu Fengmian, they walked over and knelt down. Chief Commander, these dozens of saints were all from Qin Emperor Army and Destruction Army. Now that Chu Fengmian had called them, they all rushed over. What? The dozens of saints knelt down in front of Chu Fengmian. This scene was extremely shocking in the eyes of others. These were all saints, dozens of them, but all of them were kneeling in front of Chu Fengmian. These people are all the young master's subordinates? The primordial dragon turtle opened its mouth and said in disbelief, a saint was a domineering existence in some small countries. Now, these people had all submitted to Chu Fengmian. These saints all had the primordial battle dragon blood essence bestowed by Chu Fengmian. It was impossible for them to resist. They all submitted to him wholeheartedly. Sword Slayer King. Chu Fengmian glanced at the saints kneeling on the ground and suddenly spoke. One of them stood up and walked out. Young Master, Sword Slayer King, take your men and subdue Victorious Martial Academy, Candle Flame Sect, Eelis Sect, and 3 Immortal Island. Turn their disciples into slaves. Anyone who dares to resist will be killed. Chu Fengmian said coldly. Since these forces dared to besiege the Han Snow Pavilion, they must pay the price. Yes, Sword Slayer King took the order and scattered with countless saints. Today, Chu Fengmian would completely unify victorious martial nation. Let's go. Chu Fengmian called Han Yueli and took her away. At the same time, Chu Fengmian took the saint of Beimang Academy. Chapter 404. Cold Snow Pavilion, a secret room. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli were sitting on a chair, while the saint envoy of the North Sea Academy was kneeling on the ground. He had been completely subdued by Chu Fengmian and was sealed by the heavenly death seal. He couldn't resist Chu Fengmian from the bottom of his heart and directly knelt on the ground. Your identity, name, origin, and why did you come to victorious martial country? Chu Fengmian looked at the young man and coldly snorted. To the North Sea Academy, this tiny victorious martial country wasn't even worth an ant. Being targeted by a colossus like the North Sea Academy, Chu Fengmian didn't have the mood to relax. With his strength, he was far from being able to contend against the North Sea Academy. He spared the young man's life because he wanted to see what the North Sea Academy wanted to do. My name is Tuoba Ding, an inner disciple of the North Sea Academy. I came to victorious martial country under the orders of my family to find the Northern Mang Saint Tablet and bring it back. The young man, Tuoba Ding, said respectfully, although I came to victorious martial country under the name of the North Sea Academy, it's actually an order from my family. Our Tuoba family can be considered to have a place in the North Sea Academy. Is this Northern Mang Saint Tablet worth such a large number of people coming from so far away? Chu Fengmian asked. The Northern Mang Saint Tablet was indeed worth a lot in the northern region. However, according to Chu Fengmian's understanding, it could only allow one to join the North Sea Academy. However, for the people of the North Sea Academy, even the families that had a place in the North Sea Academy, they didn't need to pay so much attention to it. This Northern Mang Saint Tablet doesn't only allow one to join the North Sea Academy, it's actually a cover for the Academy. In fact, the Northern Mang Saint Tablet was left behind by an old ancestor of the North Sea Academy. Whoever obtains, it can obtain a supreme inheritance of the Northern Mang Saint Tablet. Tuoba Ding respectfully replied. Therefore, the North Sea Academy spread the news to retrieve the Northern Mang Saint Tablet. This inheritance is extremely important. Even some life and death elders are fighting over it. Oh, inheritance? Hearing Tuoba Ding's words, Chu Fengyan was slightly surprised. Not many people in the northern region knew about this. Most people only knew that the Northern Mang sacred tablet could be exchanged for the qualification to become an inner disciple of the Northern Mang Academy. But now, it seemed like the North Sea Academy was just putting up a front. Their real goal was to collect the North Sea sacred tablet in exchange for the inheritance. Even life and death realm experts would fight over this inheritance. Its value is indeed not something that could be exchanged with a small intercourt disciple position. So, if I enter the Bei Mang Academy with the Bei Mang sacred badge, I can also obtain the succession? Chu Fengyan asked. Chu Fengyan was also curious about the inheritance of the Northern Sea Holy Land. If it could make life and death experts fight for it, then it must have great benefits. This kind of inheritance could be found in some ancient sections. Therefore, Chu Fengyan wasn't unfamiliar with it. At the very least, some of the ancient inheritances of the 7 great sects would be sought after by experts who had surpassed the life and death realm. The inheritance of the Northern Mang sacred ground can only be obtained by the Northern Mang Academy's inner disciples and above. If young lord wishes to use the Northern Mang sacred tablet to obtain the inheritance, you must first join the Northern Mang Academy. Tuoba Ding said respectfully. With young lord strength, joining the Northern Mang Academy isn't difficult. Exchanging for the inheritance will also greatly increase young lord strength. Indeed, hearing Tuoba Ding's words, Chu Fengyan nodded. This inheritance was indeed something that outsiders couldn't use. Even if he had the Northern Mang sacred tablet, it seemed that he must first join the Northern Mang Academy. What do I need to do to join the Northern Mang Academy? Chu Fengyan's eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. Joining the Northern Mang Academy wasn't something that Chu Fengyan couldn't consider. The current Chu Fengyan was almost invincible in the countless countries around him. If he wanted to take another step forward, he must go to other regions. The Northern Mang Academy had as many experts as clouds. Its strength was close to the 7 great sections. It was the gathering place of all the geniuses in the northern region. Only by going to the Northern Mang Academy could Chu Fengyan obtain true tempering and reach a higher realm. Chu Fengyan originally had the intention of going to the Northern Mang Academy. In such a great force, Chu Fengyan could obtain more tempering and more resources. With the inheritance of the Northern Mang sacred tablet, there was no reason for Chu Fengyan not to go. With young lord strength, it's not a problem to join the Northern Mang Academy. However, if you want to join the Northern Mang Academy, you must have a quota. Without a quota, you won't even be qualified to participate in the assessment. Tuoba Ding said, generally speaking, the Northern Mang Academy will give out countless quotas every year to countless clans in the nearby countries. Only those who have a quota can participate in the assessment. The Northern Mang Academy was different from other forces. It was located in the northern region and had never lacked geniuses. Therefore, the Northern Mang Academy had to ensure that the disciples were loyal and had to have a clear background. Someone like Chu Fengyan, who came from a remote area with an unknown background, would not be able to join the Northern Mang Academy. Although our Tuoba family has quite a number of quotas every year, we have to compete for them. If young lord wants to get a quota, you can go to the countries near the Northern Mang Academy. There are some clans that have a quota but have declined and will sell it. Tuoba Ding said, I know some declining clans that will sell the quota. It won't be a problem to buy it. And that's good. You can leave now. Chu Fengyan nodded and said to Tuoba Ding, yes. Tuoba Ding stood up respectfully and left. Only Chu Fengyan and Han Yueli were left in the secret chamber. You plan to go to the Northern Mang Academy? Han Yueli looked at Chu Fengyan and asked directly. That's right. The Northern Mang Academy is the true place for cultivation. There are countless geniuses that can compete, and there are countless resources. It's not something some small countries can compare with. Chu Fengyan nodded and said, not only me. You have to go with me too. Han Yueli's realm had reached the 7th level of the Divine Power realm. She was almost invincible in Wuxing country. It would be difficult for her to improve even if she continued to cultivate. Han Yueli had the profound cold body, one of the divine bodies of heaven and earth. She was extremely talented. Your strength has reached a bottleneck. The power in your bloodline is now sleeping. It must be awakened. That is your true strength. Before Hanueli could speak, Chu Fengmian said again. Chapter 4:05. Awaken the bloodline. Hanueli murmured to herself after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. I do feel that there's a dormant power in my body. However, I don't know how to awaken it. After I stepped into the divine force realm and became a saint, this power only awakened a little. However, it's less than 10%. Most of the power is still in a deep slumber. That's right. Most of your bloodline power is dormant. If you awaken it, your aptitude won't be any weaker than mine. You might even be stronger than me. Chu Fengmian nodded. Hanueli's bloodline power was dormant. She was a heavenly divine body, a profound cold body that inherited the innate source. If she awakened it completely, her aptitude would reach a terrifying level. She might even surpass Chu Fengmian. How can I awaken it? Hanueli asked. She believed that since Chu Fengmian asked, there must be a way. Bloodline fusion. How about using my bloodline with yours? I'm confident that I can awaken the power in your bloodline. Chu Fengmian said calmly. My bloodline isn't an ordinary bloodline. It's the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon. Although it's not an innate bloodline, my power has reached a certain level. If it interacts with the power of your profound cold body, I can awaken your power completely. Innate divine bodies could exchange their bloodlines to fight for power. This was also the reason why some experts kept looking for other geniuses with innate divine bodies, even though they had innate divine bodies. However, for them, what they needed to do wasn't to exchange their bloodlines, but to plunder the power of the innate divine bodies. Directly taking the power was much stronger than exchanging it. But Chu Fengmian couldn't do such a thing. With Chu Fengmian's character, he absolutely wouldn't snatch other people's Xiantian power for the sake of power. Unless it was an enemy of Chu Fengmian wouldn't hesitate to attack. Although the innate power was powerful, it was easy to be plundered by others. The Crown Prince's engagement also wanted to take the innate power of Hanueli. All right, my bloodline is indeed still in a deep slumber. If my bloodline power can be completely awakened, I can also take another step forward and share your burdens. Hanueli said decisively after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. This was done without any hesitation or consideration. Aren't you afraid that I'll steal your bloodline? Chu Fengmian was a little surprised to see Hanueli give such a straightforward answer. This kind of innate, godly body could easily be seized by others. If Chu Fengmian did something, he could easily obtain Hanueli's bloodline. If you wanted to do that, you could have done it long ago. You wouldn't have saved me back then. Hanueli blushed and said with a smile, Let's begin. I can't wait. All right. Chu Fengmian nodded. With a sudden thought, a few drops of battle dragon blood were condensed at the tip of his finger, which was inserted into Hanueli's body. Don't resist. I will activate the profound, cold power in your bloodline. Chu Fengmian said softly. All of his thoughts were integrated into the few drops of battle dragon blood essence, and all of a sudden, they entered Hanueli's body. As soon as the battle dragon blood essence entered Hanueli's body, a profound, cold power burst out from the deepest layer of her bloodline. The endless cold air was simply going to freeze people to death. Hanueli closed her eyes tightly. Her clothes were shattered by the cold air. Under the cold air, even the clothes of a spiritual weapon could not withstand it. The two of them became naked in an instant, but they were not aware of it. The ancient battle dragon blood essence in Chu Fengmian's body was fully activated to resist the endless cold air. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian was already prepared. His body was already protected by the creation strength. At the same time, the battle dragon blood essence that Chu Fengmian inserted into Hanueli's body began to communicate with it, completely awakening the power in Hanueli's body. Boom! Waves of spiritual power burst out and engulfed the entire secret chamber. Chu Fengmian and Hanueli sat in the secret chamber, activating the power in Hanueli's body at every moment. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. A total of 7 days had passed. The cold air that emerged from Hanueli's body had reached its peak. Although her appearance had not changed, Hanueli now looked like an ice goddess. Her temperament had undergone an earth-shattering change. Her realm was still at the 7th level of the divine power realm, but her power was several times stronger than before, more than 10 times stronger. Is this the power after awakening? After a long while, Hanueli opened her eyes. Her eyes were filled with shock. She already felt that her power was more than 10 times stronger than before. Such an earth-shattering change had taken place in 7 days. This was the moment when the innate godly body's power was completely activated. I can feel that I'm strong enough to fight a true peak saint. Peak saint? With your current realm, I'm afraid that some half-step life and death realm martial artists can be killed. Chu Fumian's eyes also slowly opened as he said with a smile. Activating the power of the innate godly body was not that easy. Fortunately, Chu Fumian understood the mystic cold body, so it progressed so smoothly. It's all thanks to you. Hanueli looked at Chu Fumian with a complicated expression. Chu Fumian's appearance had saved her. First, he helped her end her engagement with the crown prince. Now, because of Chu Fumian, she had awakened the power in her bloodline. It could be said that her current achievements could not be separated from Chu Fumian. I've said that you're my woman. What's the big deal about this? Chu Fumian said with a smile. Moreover, I've also benefited a lot from it. The fusion of our bloodlines has also improved my strength. Although Chu Fumian's improvement in strength was not as obvious as Hanueli's, he had also obtained a part of the mystic whole body, so he could be considered half of the mystic whole body. In addition to the power of the ancient battle dragon bloodline, Chu Fumian's aptitude was not any worse than some innate godly bodies. This was also a great benefit to him. Let's go. Chu Fumian stood up and realized that there was nothing above him. His face stiffened slightly, and he condensed his spiritual power into a long gown. Hanueli also noticed at this moment. Her face could not help but redden. She condensed a long gown and left the secret chamber with Chu Fumian. Chapter 406. Chu Fumian and Hanueli were cultivating in the secret chamber, their bloodlines intertwining. Martial Victory Country had undergone earth-shaking changes. The 3 great sects and Martial Victory Academy had been completely subdued. Under the pressure of Qin Shi Huang Army and Destruction Army, all the disciples of the 3 great sects and Martial Victory Academy had submitted, not daring to resist. Young Master, Sword Slayer King, had been waiting outside for a long time. Seeing Chu Fumian come out, he knelt down respectfully and said, "The disciples of the 3 great sects and Martial Victory Academy have all been subdued and reduced to slaves. Not bad. You've done well." Chu Fumian looked at Sword Slayer King. With a thought, a drop of golden blood condensed on his fingertip and flew toward Sword Slayer King. "This is a reward for you." Chu Fumian had always been fair in his rewards and punishments. Since Sword Slayer King had always been loyal, Chu Fumian naturally wouldn't shortchange him. "Many thanks, young master." Sword Slayer King didn't decline the drop of golden blood. He had once refined a drop of ancient battle dragon essence blood, so he naturally knew the benefits of it. He repeatedly bowed and took the drop of golden blood, swallowing it in one go. His bloodline immediately improved, and his strength advanced to the 8th level of the divine power realm. With the bloodline power bestowed by Chu Fumian, his strength was enough to contend with a true 9th level divine power realm saint. In this way, Sword Slayer King wouldn't be too far away from entering the life and death realm and surviving the great calamity. Also, the peak saints of the 3 great sects and Martial Victory Academy want to meet with young master. After refining the golden blood, Sword Slayer King raised his head and said to Chu Fumian, "Oh, take me to see them." Chu Fumian said softly. He wasn't surprised. The 3 great sects and Martial Victory Academy still had some old fellows. Although these peak saints couldn't pose any threat to Chu Fumian didn't believe that they would submit to him. However, Chu Fumian didn't believe that they would choose to submit obediently. Therefore, it was better for Chu Fumian to personally deal with them. That way, he wouldn't have any worries. After dealing with these people, Chu Fumian could go to the North Sea Academy with Hanueli. The Sword Slayer King brought Chu Fengmian to the depths of the void. There were 4 old men who had been waiting for a long time. These 4 people were all pinnacle saints, and Chu Fengmian had seen 2 of them before. One was the founding elder of Wu Sheng Academy, Saint Shui Mo, and the other was the ancestor of Cold Snow School, Saint Han Ning. As for the other 2 pinnacle saints, although Chu Fengmian had never seen them before, he could tell that they were the old ancestors of the Candle Flame sect and the Yillis sect. Why do you all want to see this, Chu? Chu Fengmian stepped into the void, glanced at the 4 people, and said calmly, Chu Fengmian, there's no need for you to play dumb. Now that you're so powerful, the disciples of the Martial Victory Institute and the other 3 sects are willing to submit to you. However, the 4 of us are all peak saints, and it's impossible for us to submit to anyone. A voice suddenly sounded. Saint Shui Mo's eyes flickered as he looked at Chu Fengmian. That's right, we're all old ancestors. There's no way we'll submit to you. At most, we can assist you, but you can't control us. The other peak saint, the old ancestor of the Yillis sect, also spoke. His eyes flickered as he looked at Chu Fengmian, and there was a hint of killing intent in his words. Kid, if you don't agree to our request today, we'll kick up a fuss. You won't be able to stop us with just a few of your underlings. So you're saying that you want to rebel? Chu Fengmian's eyes were calm as he glanced at the 4 people, and he said slowly, Rebel? We're just giving you a piece of advice. There's no way we'll submit to you now. If you know what's good for you, we can still submit to you on the surface and help you manage some of the sex affairs. The old ancestor of the Candle Flame sect said fiercely, But if you don't know what's good for you, then don't blame us for being merciless. The old ancestor of the Freezing Snow Pavilion, Han Ning, who had been silent all this while, couldn't help but nod her head. Although she didn't say anything, her current expression showed that she agreed with the 4 people's words. Don't know what's good for me? Be merciless? Today, I'd like to see what kind of ability the 4 of you have to threaten me. Chu Fengmian sneered and suddenly waved his hand. A huge wave of spiritual energy suddenly condensed and turned into an incomparably huge palm that pressed down on them. Damn, kid, you're too arrogant. We're all peak saints and old ancestors. Why would we be afraid of you? Saint Shui Mo looked at Chu Fengmian and shouted angrily. He condensed his spiritual energy and suddenly attacked. In the void, countless inks suddenly appeared. The inks turned into ferocious beasts and suddenly pounced on Chu Fengmian. The other 3 pinnacle saints also attacked at the same time. Streaks of spiritual power blasted toward Chu Fengmian. The 4 of them joined forces and wanted to fight against Chu Fengmian. You're overestimating yourselves. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted, his eyes full of disdain. With a thought, he condensed even more power in his palm. As the palm fell, the countless martial skills that the 4 of them used together were all destroyed and suppressed. The strength of the 4 of them was far from Zhao Wudi's. Now, they still wanted to fight against Chu Fengmian. They were mercilessly suppressed by Chu Fengmian. The huge spiritual energy pressed down on the 4 of them, causing them to kneel on the ground. I can even kill a half-step life and death realm martial artist. You old fellows want to fight against me and threaten me? Chu Fengmian coldly looked at the 4 of them. With a move of his palm, a black spiritual energy condensed. This black spiritual energy immediately turned into 4 heavenly death seals and engraved into the depths of their hearts. Don't even think about it. Saint Shui Mo resisted with all his might. Before his voice died away, his expression changed in an instant, becoming incomparably respectful. Under the heavenly death seals, their minds changed. They wholeheartedly submitted to Chu Fengmian, unable to resist. We're willing to submit to young master. The 4 of them said in unison, their expressions incomparably respectful. Seeing Chu Fengmian subduing the 4 peak saints so easily, Sword Slayer King's expression froze. This kind of strength was simply beyond his imagination. I'll leave these 4 to you. I'm going to the North Sea Academy. You'll be in charge of countless things in the future. After subduing the 4, Chu Fengmian directly said to Sword Slayer King. Without waiting for Sword Slayer King's reply, Chu Fengmian's figure had already disappeared into the void. Chapter 407. After arranging everything, Chu Fengmian left with Han Yueli and Tuoba Ding. Wuxing country had the protection of the Sword Slayer King and the Four Peaks Saints, so it was safe. Chu Fengmian left with peace of mind. Now, Chu Fengmian was traveling through space with Han Yueli and Tuoba Ding. They crossed countless countries and were ready to go to the Beimang Academy. The Beimang Academy was vast and boundless. The distance between Wuxing country and the Beimang Academy was more than 100 countries. Even with Chu Fengmian's full speed, he would need to fly for several months or even a year. Moreover, there were many dangerous places along the way. Even though Chu Fengmian had the holy pulse and endless spiritual power, it was still too dangerous to cross countless countries directly. Therefore, Chu Fengmian decided to go to the largest country nearby, the Spring City country. In the Spring City country, there was a teleportation formation to other countries. Using the teleportation formation, one only needed to spend a certain amount of money to go to a place thousands of miles away in an instant. Moreover, one could avoid danger along the way. Tuoba Ding came to Wuxing country through the teleportation formation. However, there was still some distance between the Qinhuang country and the Spring City country. Chu Fengmian took Tuoba Ding and Han Yueli and traveled through the void. Tuoba Ding, how many experts are there in the Beimang Academy? And where did the seed of chaos in your body come from? Chu Fengmian asked Tuoba Ding as they traveled through the void. Since he was going to the Beimang Academy, he naturally had to understand the situation there. Chu Fengmian was extremely wary of the seed of chaos in Tuoba Ding's body. The appearance of the seed of chaos meant that there was a warrior with the chaotic divine body in the Beimang Academy. The chaotic divine body was one of the strongest divine bodies in the 9 regions. It was one of the best, and it was much stronger than Han Yueli's profound cold body. It was even more powerful than Chu Fengmian's ancient war dragon bloodline. Chu Fengmian had to be on guard against such an unknown existence. Our Northern Mang Academy is the biggest sect in the northern region. It's a real giant. Although I'm an inner disciple, I don't know much about it, because there are seed disciples and core disciples above me. These seed disciples and core disciples are the real elites of the Northern Mang Academy. Tuoba Ding reported truthfully. I don't know how many experts there are, but the elders of our North Mang Academy are all life and death experts. It's even said that some of the old antiques have even surpassed the life and death realm. As for the Chaos Seed, it's actually called a Holy Seed in our Northern Mang Academy. It came from a core disciple of our Northern Mang Academy, Yi Tianjun. The moment Yi Tianjun's name was mentioned, Tuoba Ding's eyes were filled with fear. Yi Tianjun is a true giant in the Northern Mang Academy. It's said that his strength has already reached the upper stages of the life and death realm. His power index has even surpassed 1,000, surpassing countless elders. Countless elders of the Northern Mang Academy regard him highly. He even established a huge force, the Saint Party. I'm one of the members of the Saint Party. As long as a disciple joins the Saint Party, they'll get a holy seed as their source of power. Tuoba Ding said respectfully, "Source of power?" Hearing Tuoba Ding's words, Chu Fengmian couldn't help but sneer a few times. With a thought, the Chaos Seed appeared in his palm. This Chaos Seed isn't a source of power. Although it can burst out a certain amount of power, it's actually absorbing your power and seizing your cultivation base for its own use. Moreover, the Chaos Seed plant in your body is actually a restriction. Your life will be controlled by others. Chu Fengmian said, "Don't you feel that after the Chaos Seed left your body, your cultivation progress has become much faster? Actually, many of us disciples know this." Tuoba Ding couldn't help but smile bitterly after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. However, this isn't voluntary. The Saint Party's position is very high in the Northern Mang Academy. If we're chosen by them and don't choose to join them, I'm afraid we'll be targeted everywhere. At that time, we won't get any resources. In order to obtain resources, we can't resist even if we know the disadvantages of the Saint Party. Although the Northern Mang Academy had a lot of resources, there were also many geniuses competing for them. Competition was unavoidable if one wanted to obtain resources. Only by joining the Saint Party could they obtain more resources in the Northern Mang Academy. Even if they knew the disadvantages of the Saint Party, they could only obediently submit and join the Saint Party. Right. What's your Northern Mang Academy's power index? Chu Fumian suddenly asked. He had just heard Tuoba Ding mention the power index. This power index is actually a special calculation method of our Northern Mang Academy. The strength of an ordinary peak saint is a number of 1. For example, I have the strength of 2 peak saints combined. My power index is 2. Tuoba Ding explained. In our Northern Mang Academy, if the power index reaches 1, one can be promoted to an inner disciple. If the power index reaches 10, one can be promoted to a seed disciple. Oh, that's a bit interesting. Hearing Tuoba Ding's explanation, Chu Fumian's eyes couldn't help but light up. This was actually a method of calculating power as a number. This concept didn't exist 10,000 years ago. It seemed like the Northern Mang Academy wasn't without a method to rise up and become a behemoth close to the 7 great sects in the northern region. At least, this power index alone was extremely convenient. It was enough to make one's eyes light up. With this, one could clearly understand the other party's strength. Then, what level has my strength reached? Chu Fumian's mind flickered as he displayed his spiritual power. A wave of pressure directly pressed down on Tuoba Ding. This young master's power index has probably surpassed 10. It's enough to contend with a martial artist who has just stepped into the life and death realm. Sensing Chu Fumian's power, Tuoba Ding broke out in cold sweat. This level of strength had far surpassed his own. Ordinary experts who had just stepped into the life and death realm had a power index of 10. In other words, the strength Chu Fumian had just displayed was enough to contend with an ordinary first-layer life and death realm martial artist. Chapter 408. Is this the strength of an ordinary life and death realm warrior? Hearing Tuoba Ding's words, Chu Fumian thought inwardly. The strength he had just displayed was not even 1/3 of his actual strength. It seemed that Chu Fumian's current strength was enough to contend with ordinary life and death realm warriors. Chu Fumian was not surprised by this result. When he was fighting against Emperor Qin Shi Huang, he was already strong enough to contend with the best among the peak saints. Now that Chu Fumian had obtained the power of fortune and a part of Hanuel Li's profound cold force, his strength had greatly increased. Compared to an ordinary life and death realm warrior, it was nothing. However, this strength is nothing in the North Sea Academy. It seems that I have to keep a low profile if I want to enter the academy. Chu Fumian thought inwardly. According to this power index, Yi Tianjun of the Beimang Academy had the power of 1,000 pinnacle saints. This strength was dozens of times stronger than Chu Fumian. The current Chu Fumian was far from being able to contend with him. However, as long as Chu Fumian entered the North Sea Academy, with his aptitude, he was confident that his strength would soar again. His aptitude was not inferior to any innate divine body. While Chu Fumian and Tuoba Ding were talking, the space in front of them suddenly shattered. Their figures turned into a ray of light and left the void. This is the Spring City Kingdom. Chu Fumian left the space and saw a huge city at a glance. Rather than calling the Spring City a country, it was more like an incomparably huge city. At a glance, one could not see the end of it. It was so huge that countless experts were hidden in it. Even with Chu Fumian's spiritual consciousness, he could not thoroughly scan the Spring City Kingdom. One could see how huge the Spring City Kingdom was. Just this gigantic city alone was no smaller than the Qin Empire. The population of the city was at least 100 billion. It was simply shocking. Countless warriors came to the Spring City Kingdom and directly descended, passing through the city gate below. The Spring City was also covered with dense restrictions, making it impossible for people to fly. If they wanted to enter, they had to go through the main entrance. Given Chu Fumian's strength, these restrictions couldn't do anything to him. However, Chu Fumian still descended and entered the city from the front of the city gate. After each of them paid 109 cauldrons of pills, the 3 of them stepped into the Spring City. As soon as they entered the ancient city, they saw countless shops selling medicinal pills, spirit tools. There were countless shops as far as the eye could see. The Spring City Kingdom was indeed much wealthier than the Qin Kingdom. This was the true, flourishing kingdom of the northern region. In comparison, the Qin Empire was just a small and remote place, while the Wuxing Empire was just a small and unknown place. Chu Fengmian scanned his surroundings and didn't find anything that caught his attention, so he asked directly, "Where is this teleportation array?" Tuoba Ding looked at Chu Fengmian and answered, "Young master, the teleportation formation that leads to the vicinity of the Bei Mang Academy is in the City Lord's Mansion. Go over." Chu Fengmian said directly and followed Tuoba Ding all the way to the City Lord's Mansion. The City Lord's Mansion was huge, and there were teleportation formations that led to several other big cities. When Chu Fengmian arrived, a large number of warriors had already gathered in front of the City Lord's Mansion. Apparently, they were all waiting to use the teleportation formation. The Bei Mang Academy will open its doors to recruit disciples in a month's time. These people should be going there to try their luck. When Tuoba Ding saw this scene, he did not find it strange at all and explained to him. Most of the warriors who had gathered were not weak. The weakest among them was at least in the wind-controlling realm. Some of the outstanding ones had even stepped into the divine power realm at a young age and became saints. These warriors were not rogue cultivators. Many of them were geniuses from the big families of the surrounding countries. Joining the Bei Mang Academy, even if they were just an inner disciple, would be more honorable than the emperor of some small countries. Joining the Bei Mang Academy not only brought status, but also opportunities in the future. Young warriors with some aptitude all wanted to join the academy. Let's also wait here slowly. Chu Fengmian glanced at the crowd and slowly said. The three of them walked into the crowd, moving along with the bustling crowd. Why are there so many people here today? The Bei Mang Academy is going to open its doors to recruit disciples. Countless geniuses from the surrounding countries are planning to go to the Bei Mang Academy to try their luck. In front of Chu Fengmian, several young warriors were discussing. Apparently, they were bored from waiting and started chatting. Trying their luck? I'm afraid they can't even find a spot. Maybe they have some connections. After all, if they have high aptitude, some families are willing to give them a spot. These people dare to call themselves geniuses? In the Bei Mang Academy, they're not even comparable to some odd-job disciples. Even if they can enter, they can only be an odd-job disciple at most. But even if they are just odd-job disciples, their resources are better than ours. If they are lucky enough to be promoted to outer disciple, they will be a big shot when they return to our country. If they're inner disciples, even the emperor will have to bow to us. A young warrior said with longing. Stop dreaming. As long as we can get in and become an outer disciple, we will be safe and won't have to worry about resources anymore. Another young martial artist said emotionlessly. This Bei Mang Academy is indeed an overlord. It can actually attract so many warriors to participate in the assessment. Chu Fengmian looked at the countless people talking and calmly said, joining the Northern Mang Academy was akin to hugging a big tree tightly. There were countless benefits. No wonder so many people wanted to join. Among these people, less than 1 in 10,000 can enter the Bei Mang Academy. At most, they will be odd-job disciples. It will be difficult to become an outer disciple. Tuoba Ding glanced at the surroundings and said with disdain. Although Tuoba Ding was just an ant in front of Chu Fengmian, he was still a high existence in front of these people. Naturally, he was disdainful. Hearing Tuoba Ding's words, Chu Fengmian only smiled. Indeed, less than 1 in 10,000 could enter the Bei Mang Academy. But as long as there was a chance, it would still attract countless warriors to try. Chapter 409. 6 hours later, Chu Fengmian and his group followed the crowd and arrived at the City Lord Mansion. At a glance, Chu Fengmian could already see one of the huge formations. The aura of the teleportation array was extremely ancient. It had existed for tens of thousands of years and was created by the Almighty of the ancient times. In the current era, such means had long disappeared. The experts of the Spring City Kingdom could only repair it, but could not build it. You bunch of trash. Get lost. All of a sudden, A feminine voice rang out behind Chu Fengyan. It was the voice of a woman. Chu Fengyan turned around and saw a woman in blue. She looked to be in her early 20s and was emitting spiritual energy. Her strength was at the 7th level of the divine power realm. Chu Fengyan could feel that the strength of the woman in blue was far beyond her realm. At least, she was not weaker than Tobading. She was much stronger than ordinary peak saints. She could be considered a genius with great aptitude. You bunch of trash, don't block the way here. Get lost and don't waste my time. The woman in blue looked at the crowd in the city lord mansion and suddenly pointed at the countless warriors and shouted angrily. What? Damn it! Hearing the arrogant words of the woman in blue, countless warriors looked over. However, when they sensed the strength of the woman in blue, none of them dared to speak. A 7th level of the divine power realm was comparable to the old ancestors of some small forces. They were far from being able to contend with her. Although some of the warriors were angry, they could only step aside and open up a path for the blue-clothed woman to walk through. Which force is this unruly woman from? Damn it, her strength is not bad. We are not her match. Forget it. She is strong. Let's avoid her. She will kick a metal plate sooner or later if she is so arrogant. Those cultivators who had retreated one after another were all enraged as they discussed amongst themselves. The woman in blue seemed to have heard these discussions, causing her eyes to turn icy cold. She swept a glance at the cultivators who had just retreated, her eyes filled with contempt. A bunch of trash. How dare you talk about me? If you're not convinced, step forward. As soon as the blue-robed woman spoke, a wave of oppressive might pressed down. The blue-clothed woman's eyes were full of disdain. She did not put the martial artists present in her eyes at all. The pressure was comparable to that of a peak saint. Many weaker cultivators could not help but spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. Miss, aren't you being a little too overbearing? We didn't provoke you, but you're actually pressuring us with your aura. A young man suddenly walked out. The strength of this young man wasn't weak at all. He was at the 8th level of the divine force realm. In terms of cultivation, he was even superior to the blue-clothed lady. However, Chu Fengyan could tell that the young man's foundation was far inferior to the blue-clothed ladies. If they really fought, the young man would probably be easily defeated by the blue-clothed woman. It's the young master of the Zheng clan. This is an expert at the 8th level of the divine force realm. After entering the Beimang Academy, he can fight for the position of an inner disciple. It seems that young Master Zheng is about to make a move. It's good to teach the blue-clothed lady a lesson so that she won't be too arrogant. When some of the martial artists saw young Master Zheng walking out and speaking, they all had the mentality of watching a show. The blue-clothed lady was indeed a little too arrogant. They also wanted to see if there was someone who could teach the blue-clothed lady a lesson. Why? You want to be the one to stand out? You're not qualified to be the one to stand out. The blue-clothed lady glanced at young Master Zheng and snorted coldly. The meaning in her words was that she did not put young Master Zheng in her eyes at all. Her voice was extremely sharp and ear-piercing. She sneered continuously. Her words instantly caused young Master Zheng's expression to change. Boundless anger erupted in his heart. The blue-clothed lady was indeed a little too overbearing. He only came out to persuade her, but he was directly targeted. Young Master Zheng was also a genius. As an 8th-level divine force realm saint, he was proud and arrogant. How could he withstand such provocation? Since that's the case, then I'll be the one to seek guidance from you. Young Master Zheng snorted coldly. His figure moved, and he directly grabbed at the blue-clothed lady with his claw. Both of his hands turned black and became incomparably hard. In an instant, he grabbed at the blue-clothed lady. Although this move was not a killing move, it was a move made in anger, and its power was not weak. He wanted to teach the blue-clothed lady a lesson. Dark Sky Dark Claw. Young Master Zheng is known as the Dark Claw Saint. His Dark Sky Dark Claw is extremely powerful. It's even stronger than an Earth-grade spiritual weapon. Even a peak saint might not be able to withstand it. Young Master Zheng is an almost invincible figure in the same realm. The blue-clothed lady's cultivation is only at the 7th level of the divine force realm. This time, young Master Zheng should be able to win easily. Young Master Zheng was also a well-known expert in the Spring City country. When they saw him attacking, some of his supporters could not help but speak up. A piece of trash from a remote area. Do you think that you can contend against me just because you have some fortuitous encounters? You want to stand out? Today, I'll let you suffer a little first. I'll let you know the immensity of heaven and earth. The blue-clothed lady looked at young Master Zheng's attack. Facing the dark sky dark claw, she sneered. She waved her hand, and countless blood chi gathered in her palm. The blood chi turned into a long whip and lashed out. When the long whip lashed out, young Master Zheng's dark sky dark claw was instantly broken. He could not help but cry out in pain as he was sent flying. What? How is this possible? Young Master Zheng was defeated. Some of the onlookers could not believe what they saw. Young Master Zheng, who was at the 8th level of the Divine Force realm and could contend against a peak saint, was defeated just like that. He was defeated in one move by the blue-clothed lady. This was simply shocking to countless people. Young Master Zheng was not a nobody. No one would have thought that he would be defeated by the blue-clothed lady in one move. This blue-clothed lady's strength is probably at 3 points of battle strength. She's even stronger than me. Tuoba Ding looked at the blue-clothed lady, and his expression changed drastically. The blue-clothed lady's strength was equivalent to 3 points of battle strength. Compared to an ordinary peak saint, she was 3 times stronger. She was only at the 7th level of the Divine Force realm. With such strength, she was definitely worthy of being called a genius. Chapter 410. All of you come out. After defeating young Master Zheng with a single move, the lady in blue became even more complacent. She glanced at the crowd and suddenly waved her hand. A few honorable martial artists were pulled out from the crowd. They were the martial artists who had been discussing earlier. You bunch of trash! How dare you talk about me? The lady in blue sneered coldly. She waved her hand, causing the martial artists to scream out in pain as they spat out mouthfuls of blood. Among the blood, there was something else that was spat out. Tongues. The lady in blue tore off the honorable martial artist's tongues. Her method was extremely vicious. Moreover, the wound on their tongues was burned by her spiritual energy. Even with spiritual medicine, it could not be healed. The honorable martial artists had only discussed a little before their tongues were ripped off. Her method could not be described as vicious. It was simply vicious. However, this time, no one dared to speak after seeing the lady in blue's actions. Young Master Zheng had been defeated by the lady in blue with a single move. Young Master Zheng was considered a well-known expert among the younger generation of the Spring City country. Now that young Master Zheng had been defeated in a single move, no one dared to go against the lady in blue. What are you looking at? Get out of my way. The woman in blue roared in a shrill voice. Then, she walked towards the crowd. The crowd involuntarily opened up a path for her to pass. The lady in blue walked over and looked at Chu Fengyan and the others who were standing still. Suddenly, she pointed at Chu Fengyan and said, "Don't you have ears? I asked you to get out of my way. Did you hear me? Damn it." Tuoba Ding shouted angrily when he heard the lady in blue. He had already planted the heavenly death seal in his heart and submitted to Chu Fengyan wholeheartedly. He was furious when he heard the lady in blue scolding Chu Fengyan. What? Another one who wants to stand out? Do you want to end up like that trash? The lady in blue sneered when she heard Tuoba Ding's words. It seems that there are really people who don't know what's good for them. How dare they block my way? The lady in blue looked at Chu Fengyan and gathered her spiritual energy to attack again. He could tell that Chu Fengyan was the leader of the three. His eyes flickered as he attacked Chu Fengyan. Get out of my way. In her palm, a surge of spiritual energy transformed into a long whip made of blood aura. Then, it lashed out at Chu Fengyan. This whip was formed almost silently. Once it hit someone, at the very least, the skin would split open and the flesh would split open. At the very least, the spirit meridians would be cracked. This sudden lash of the whip was definitely incomparably vicious. Without a single word of disagreement, he directly attacked. This was the so-called rude and unreasonable to the extreme. Ha! I'll give you a whip to let you know the consequences of blocking my way. Seeing the whip lashing out, the blue-clothed woman laughed loudly. Chu Fengmian's face was expressionless, but his eyes revealed some annoyance. He had no interest in bickering with this blue-clothed woman. Even if she was arrogant and despotic, it had nothing to do with Chu Fengmian. But now, this blue-clothed woman actually went directly to Chu Fengmian's head. She directly attacked and lashed out at Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian was really at the peak of the wind-controlling realm, this long whip of blood aura was enough to beat Chu Fengmian half to death. If others did not offend him, he would not offend them. However, Chu Fengmian was not someone who would be bullied casually. "Get out of my way." Chu Fengmian coldly snorted and suddenly spat out a word. This word contained the dragon's might of the war dragon. It was an ancient dragon's roar. A dragon's roar burst out in the street. The blood aura in the long whip of blood aura of the blue-clothed woman was instantly dissolved. It was directly broken, and the endless blood aura was immediately scattered. This dragon's roar restrained all evil things in the world. This kind of blood aura was restrained by the dragon's roar and was immediately dispersed. This dragon's roar directly blasted towards the blue-clothed woman, forcing her to take a few steps back. Although it didn't hurt her, it weakened her aura in an instant. "What? You dare to resist? You dare to destroy my martial technique?" The blue-clothed woman came back to her senses, looked at Chu Fengmian, and shouted angrily. "You actually managed to force me to retreat. Damn it, you are sinful. Anyone who dares to be my enemy must die." As she shouted angrily, the blue-clothed woman condensed an endless amount of spiritual energy, which turned into countless blood aura and condensed into several long whips of blood aura. Once again, she lashed out at Chu Fengmian. Her eyes were full of murderous intent. Each of her moves was full of killing intent, as if she wanted to kill Chu Fengmian directly. She planned to kill him on the street without a word. When the blue-clothed woman saw Chu Fengmian's realm clearly, her expression became even more furious. She was like an angry lion. "A little wind-controlling realm ant wants to contend with me because you think you have some fortuitous encounters? Martial technique of the dragon clan? Today, even if you're a real dragon, I will still kill you." The blue-clothed woman was furious, and her murderous intent was not concealed. She was a saint at the 7th level of the divine power realm. She was a genius who could fight across realms. Now, she was forced to retreat by a wind-controlling realm warrior. This was a great humiliation for her. Several long blood-red whips lashed out at Chu Fengmian at the same time. "I'll cripple your cultivation first. Then, I will capture you and torture you. This is what you get for going against me." The blue-clothed woman's blood-red whips were aimed at Chu Fengmian's spiritual meridian. She wanted to destroy Chu Fengmian's spiritual meridian and destroy his cultivation. It's over. A wind-controlling realm kid dares to contend with this fierce person. He is simply courting death. To be able to repel the blue-clothed woman in one move, this person's strength is far from a wind-controlling realm warrior. So what? Even young Master Zheng was defeated. Can this kid still contend? This kid is also a genius. Unfortunately, he is going to die in the hands of the blue-clothed woman today. Some of the onlooking warriors could not help but shake their heads. When the blue-clothed woman made her move, the outcome was already determined. They did not believe that a wind-controlling realm warrior could contend with the blue-clothed woman who had defeated young Master Zheng. Destroy my cultivation? Murderous intent emerged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. He had no enmity with the blue-clothed woman. Just now, Chu Fengmian did not ridicule her, but the blue-clothed woman directly attacked Chu Fengmian. Now, she even wanted to destroy Chu Fengmian's cultivation. Such an arrogant character was simply disgusting. Chu Fengmian was not interested in fighting with the blue-clothed woman, but she was unwilling to let him go. 8 chapters today. More chapters tomorrow. Chapter 411. Chu Fengmian didn't want to cause trouble, but he wouldn't allow others to humiliate him. Since that's the case, I'll teach you a lesson. Break it. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and a burst of spiritual energy burst out. This burst of spiritual energy covered the sky and earth, and it was full of dragon's might. Those blood whips were immediately shattered under the dragon's might. The dragon's might of the war dragon could restrain all evil things, not to mention this little blood whips. The blood whips of the blue-clothed woman were far inferior to Chu Fengmian's slaughter sword technique. It was easily dispelled. Chu Fengmian stood in the same place, and with a wave of his hand, a burst of spiritual energy dissolved the countless blood whips of the blue-clothed woman. This made the countless onlookers feel that it was unbelievable. Even young Master Zheng couldn't withstand this blood whips, but Chu Fengmian stood in the same place and dissolved so many blood whips so easily. This was far from what a wind-resisting realm warrior could do. This person is hiding his strength. This person's strength is actually higher than the blue-clothed woman's. I wonder which country or family's genius he is from. No matter what, it's good to kill this blue-clothed woman's arrogance. Countless onlookers discussed among themselves. They didn't mind watching the show. Hiding his strength? In the eyes of the blue-clothed woman, she could see that Chu Fengmian's realm was indeed at the peak of the wind-resisting realm. It was just that this dragon clan's martial technique was too much to restrain her, causing her countless methods to fail. The dragon clan's martial technique was indeed able to restrain this kind of evil martial technique. However, she was a figure of the divine power realm, and she couldn't deal with a wind-resisting realm ant. Instead, she was easily dissolved. How could she bear this? Boy, do you really think you can contend with me with this dragon clan's martial technique? Today, I'll let you know the consequences of provoking me. The blue-clothed woman screamed. Her voice was very ear-piercing, like a roar. On her body, a burst of spiritual energy suddenly condensed. The strength just now wasn't her full strength. She waved her hand, and suddenly countless warriors around her screamed. Their blood essence was extracted, and all of it condensed in her hand, forming a blood-red demonic claw. The warriors around the blue-clothed woman fell one after another. Their blood essence wasn't empty, and all of them became extremely weak. The blue-clothed woman's method was extremely ruthless. She directly extracted the blood essence of others to replenish her strength. This was simply the style of a devil. The surrounding few saints saw the blue-clothed woman. They were all enraged. They stood out and glared angrily at the blue-clothed woman. The fight between the two of them had even affected other unrelated people. This had already caused public outrage. What? Do you also want your blood essence's blood essence? The blue-clothed woman 9 pills as blood tests, 9 pills TTTSB. As many hundreds of 9s. Take these medicinal pills as compensation. Hurry up and scram. The saints received the pills. After hesitating for a moment, they left with the warriors whose blood essence had been sucked dry. The blue-clothed woman's strength was indeed powerful and not easy to deal with. Since she had given out the pills, the saints were not willing to be her enemy. Kid, let's see if your dragon tribe's martial skill is able to resist my blood hands. The blue-clothed woman glared at Chu Fengmian and snapped. A pair of bloody hands directly bombarded Chu Fengmian, as if to take Chu Fengmian's life. Stop it! A shocking yell could be heard all of a sudden. A figure flew out from the city lord's mansion. It was a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance and an extraordinary temperament. It was obvious that he was a powerful expert. As soon as the middle-aged man appeared, he immediately waved his hand and shattered the blood hands that the blue-clothed woman had summoned. It's City Lord Nangong. Even a master of the Spring City Kingdom has been alerted. However, the blue-clothed woman's strength is already comparable to many peak saints. If City Lord Nangong doesn't make a move, I'm afraid no one can stop her. Discussions broke out one after another. City Lord Nangong? Chu Fengmian's eyes also looked at City Lord Nangong. This person was the master of the Spring City. Life and Death Realm. City Lord Nangong's realm was a genuine life and death realm expert. His strength far surpassed Zhao Wudi's. According to his strength index, he had at least 20 points. In terms of pure strength, he was even slightly stronger than Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fumian had countless fortuitous encounters. Furthermore, he had the ancient battle dragon bloodline and the power of fortune. In a real battle, even if Chu Fumian couldn't defeat City Lord Nangong, he could still contend against him. Life and Death Realm Expert. When the blue-clothed woman saw City Lord Nangong appear and sensed his strength, her arrogant expression became much more restrained. Life and Death Realm Experts were something she needed to be wary of. Although her strength far surpassed ordinary peak saints, Life and Death Realm Experts, no matter how weak they were, could still easily defeat her. In the 9 regions, strength was status. Facing experts, one could only revere them. Even someone as arrogant as her had to restrain herself now. Everyone here is a young genius preparing to participate in the North Sea Academy's exam. Perhaps you're all from the same sect. There's no need to have a life and death battle here. City Lord Nangong said with a faint smile. There's a rule in the Spring City. You can exchange pointers, but you must stop at a certain point. If you want a life and death battle, you can leave the Spring City. City Lord Nangong said. Although his tone was calm, the meaning behind it was clear. Life and death battles weren't allowed in the Spring City. His appearance was to calm the battle down. Humph! Hearing City Lord Nangong's words, the blue-clothed woman couldn't help but coldly snort. She glanced at Chu Fumian and sneered. Since that's the case, I'll let you go this time. After speaking, the blue-clothed woman directly walked towards the teleportation array and left. She also understood that there was no need to offend a life and death realm expert for no reason. Thus, she directly chose to leave. Let's go too. Chu Fumian glanced at Hanuel Li and Tuoba Ding beside him and said. He didn't feel like arguing with this blue-clothed woman, so he directly called the two of them and prepared to leave. Arriving at the teleportation array, Chu Fumian paid 1,009 cauldron pills per person and directly teleported. In an instant, the world in front of Chu Fumian spun. In an instant, he arrived at a country 10,000 miles away. Chapter 412. Chu Fumian and the others passed through countless countries and used the teleportation formation to go to the Biming Academy. The northern region was so big that it was impossible to measure it. Chu Fumian used 30 to 40 teleportation formations along the way and gradually arrived at the area near the Biming Academy. If Chu Fumian were to fly, he might not be able to fly to the Biming Academy even if he was given 10 years. Along the way, Chu Fumian and the others crossed countless countries and came to a place called the Manyuan Ancient City. The Manyuan Ancient City did not belong to any country and was an important transportation route. The teleportation formation in it could lead to many other countries. The next stop that Chu Fumian and the others were preparing to go to was the Manyuan Ancient City. Why are there so many people? Chu Fumian and the others had just come out of the teleportation formation and looked around. The huge Manyuan Ancient City was full of martial artists. It seemed that they were densely packed and were talking from time to time. They did not know why. Tuoba Ding, go and see what happened. Chu Fumian turned his head and glanced at Tuoba Ding. Yes. Tuoba Ding went over and asked for a while before coming back and saying to Chu Fumian, the teleportation formation in the Manyuan Ancient City seems to be broken and can't be used now. That's why we are stuck here. The teleportation formation is broken? Chu Fumian frowned when he heard the news. The teleportation formation was built by the experts of the ancient times. Now that countless years had passed, many of them had fallen into disrepair and might be broken. Although they could be repaired, it would take some time. It would not be a problem for people who were not in a hurry, but Chu Fumian was in a hurry to go to the Biming Academy. Chu Fumian calculated that he was not rich before the Biming Academy opened and accepted disciples. Not to mention, Chu Fumian had to obtain the qualifications to participate in the assessment first. If he was delayed here for a while, he might miss the opportunity to open and accept disciples. Every time the Biming Academy opened and accepted disciples, it would take 3 years. Chu Fumian did not want to waste 3 years. How far is this place from the next transit station? Chu Fumian looked at Tuoba Ding and asked. He was still not very familiar with the terrain of the northern region. About 100,000 kilometers. Tuoba Ding said after a slight hesitation. It is not very far from this Manyuan ancient city to the next Xianzhou ancient city. It will not take long to cross over. However, there are quite a number of bandits along the way. They are quite troublesome and not easy to deal with. Bandits? When Chu Fengmian heard Tuoba Ding's words, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. In his opinion, these bandits were warriors without any aptitude. They only had some strength, so they chose to rob others to make a living. However, for normal bandits, the divine sea realm was the limit. Even the wind-controlling realm was extremely rare. To them, the wind-controlling realm was far from being a threat. Why did Tuoba Ding say that it was extremely problematic? Young master, there's something you don't know. These bandits aren't actually rebels. They're disciples from the Earth Demon sect, a large sect in the northern region. Tuoba Ding looked at Chu Fengmian and explained slowly. This Earth Demon sect has a great influence in the northern region. However, it is a demonic sect. Their actions are shameful. Therefore, their disciples are usually called bandits. These Earth Demon sect's disciples are not weak. They often occupy mountains and rob people. Many of them are ruthless. Not only do they rob, but they will also kill people and devour their essence blood. This region is the Earth Demon sect's territory. Therefore, it is not easy to deal with them. If you cross rashly, you might encounter their disciples. Earth Demon sect. Chu Fengmian knew this name. This Earth Demon sect was actually one of the demonic sects that split off from the Nine Demon City. After the Nine Demon City became one of the 7 great sects, they couldn't do things that were too ruthless. Therefore, countless experts in the Nine Demon City split off and established countless demonic sects. Although there was no relation between the two sides on the surface, Chu Fengmian knew that this Earth Demon sect was actually under the Nine Demon City. However, this layer of paper had never been broken. This Earth Demon sect was one of the top forces among the countless demonic sects under the Nine Demon City. There was no lack of life and death realm experts in this sect. It was indeed not easy to deal with them. However, generally speaking, life and death realm experts were considered old antiques in the Earth Demon sect. They usually wouldn't take action and would only cultivate in seclusion. Therefore, it wasn't easy to encounter them. Young master, should we wait here for a few days or cross the void and go to Xianzhou Ancient City? Tuoba Ding asked from his side. Now, that Chu Fengmian was the master, he had to listen to Chu Fengmian. Tuoba Ding's words could only be used as a reference. The one who had to make the decision was still Chu Fengmian. Given my speed, I will only need 5 days to reach Xian Province Ancient City. If I wait here, it is very likely that I will be delayed, resulting in insufficient time. Chu Fengmian listened to everyone's discussion and knew that the teleportation array would take at least a month to be repaired. Now, Chu Fengmian still had half a month to reach North Sea Academy. The Northern Mang Academy would open its doors and accept disciples in 2 months. If Chu Fengmian were to wait here for a month in vain, it would not be enough time for Chu Fengmian. After all, Chu Fengmian still needed to find the qualifications to participate in the assessment. Rather than waiting here, he might as well cross the void. It doesn't matter even if we encounter people from the Earth Demon sect. As long as they aren't life and death realm old antiques, I can easily deal with them. Moreover, it's only been 5 days. It's not certain if we can meet them. Chu Fengmian said. Waiting wasn't his character. I agree. Han Yueli, who was standing at the side, also spoke. If they waited here for a month, the teleportation array might not be repaired. It would be better to just travel through the void and head there. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Tuoba Ding nodded and went to buy a map to check the route to Xianzhou Ancient City. Chu Fengmian used his spiritual sense to scan the surroundings and found that many warriors had the same idea as him. If they wasted a month, they might not be able to participate in the assessment of the North Sea Academy. However, there were already many warriors who chose to cross the void to Xianzhou Ancient City. Let's go. After a while, Tuoba Ding came back and checked the route. Chu Fengmian and the others stood up and crossed the void to Xianzhou Ancient City. Chapter 413. Traversing the void wasn't a difficult task for Chu Fengmian. He brought Tuoba Ding and Han Yueli with him as they shuttled through the void. Ordinary warriors would need to rest or consume elixirs to recover their spiritual power after a period of time when traversing the void. After all, traversing the void consumed a large amount of spiritual power at every moment. Even pinnacle saints or life and death realm warriors couldn't withstand the constant consumption of spiritual power. There would be a time when they would run out of spiritual power. Therefore, they had to rest after a period of time. As a result, their speed would be much slower. Some life and death realm warriors would need at least 10 days to half a month to traverse this distance. However, Chu Fengmian had the support of the God Pulse and endless spiritual power. He didn't need to rest at all and could traverse the void at every moment. Traversing this region would save at least half the time compared to other warriors of the same strength. As a result, the chances of encountering danger would be much lower. If this is the case, we can reach Xianzhou Ancient City in 5 days. It's fine if there aren't any accidents. Tuoba Ding sighed inwardly. Even if they didn't encounter any danger, they still had a grave expression. Obviously, they were wary of the Earth Demon sect. This was one of the reasons why many people would rather wait for the transportation formation to be repaired than traversing the void. They were worried about the dangers involved. Natural disasters and man-made disasters were all possible. The chances of encountering natural disasters were less than 1 in 100. However, man-made disasters were a different story. For example, the Earth Demon sect controlled countless areas around it. They were notorious for attacking warriors who traversed the void. Warriors who could traverse the void were all saints who were at least in the divine power realm. These Earth Demon sect disciples were aiming for the saint's blood essence. The Earth Demon sect was definitely a demon sect. The cultivation techniques they practiced were also incomparably cruel. They used the saint blood essence to cultivate. Once they encountered the Earth Demon sect's disciples, their chances of survival would be less than 1 in 10. For example, in Beimang Academy, many disciples died at the hands of the Earth Demon sect every year. Moreover, most of the deaths were because they were killed by the Earth Demon sect's disciples while traversing the void. Thus, Tuoba Ding's complexion had been extremely pale the entire time. He was worried and scared. The disciples of the Earth Demon sect were all extremely ferocious devils. As long as one was caught by them, death would be the lightest punishment. It was very likely that one would be subjected to endless torture. There seems to be some strange spiritual energy fluctuations in front of us. As Chu Fengmian traveled, he suddenly frowned and stopped. With a wave of his hand, he arrived at another space. This space should have been opened by the others who had just passed through it. However, from the looks of it, there wasn't a single person in this space. However, one could still smell the thick stench of blood in the air. Let's see what's going on. Hanueli could not help but frown when she smelled the scent of blood. With a wave of her hand, a wave of spiritual energy shot out and condensed. In front of everyone, it turned into an ice mirror. As she activated her spiritual energy, an image appeared. This was the scene of what had just happened in the spatial passageway. A few saints could be seen traversing the passageway. Judging from the direction they were heading, it was obvious that they had come from Manyuan Ancient City and were preparing to traverse the void to Xianzhou Ancient City. This group of people were talking and laughing. However, soon, there was a fluctuation in the surrounding space. A few black-robed saints suddenly appeared. These are the disciples of the Earth Demon sect. Tuoba Ding's expression changed when he saw the black-robed saints. The black robes were the symbol of the Earth Demon sect. Indeed, this group of people had been intercepted by the Earth Demon sect. When the black-robed saints appeared, they killed all the saints in a few moves and took away their bodies. Then, the water mirror shattered. Judging from the lingering smell of blood, this had happened within the last 2 hours. As expected, the people of the Earth Demon sect will not let go of this opportunity. They have already begun to move around this area. Now that the teleportation array had been destroyed, there were so many martial artists who were preparing to go to Beimang Academy to participate in the assessment. Many of them would definitely choose to traverse the void in order to save time. This gave the Earth Demon sect countless opportunities. It was enough for them to kill without restraint. After seeing this, Tuoba Ding said with lingering fear. These people should be the elite experts of the Earth Demon sect. The leader is probably one of the sovereigns. His strength is extremely strong, comparable to the seed disciples of our Biming Academy. The seed disciples of the Biming Academy could only be promoted if their strength index reached 10. This strength had already entered the life and death realm. However, Chu Fengyan could see that the leader had not passed the life and death tribulation. However, this was even more terrifying. To have a strength index of 10 without passing the life and death tribulation was something only absolute geniuses could achieve. Let's go. If we wait here, we might be discovered by the people of the Earth Demon sect, Chu Fengyan said with a calm face. If they waited here, the people of the Earth Demon sect might discover them. It was better to continue moving. He took Tuoba Ding and Han Yueli with him and activated his spiritual energy again. They continued to traverse the void and headed towards Xianzhou Ancient City. 3 days passed. Chu Fengyan had been traversing the void continuously for 3 days. If it were other warriors, they would have exhausted their strength by now. However, Chu Fengyan had the divine veins and could replenish his spiritual energy at any time. Chu Fengyan did not feel tired even after traversing the void continuously for 30 days. He was still full of energy and was in his best condition. In these 3 days, Chu Fengyan had traversed more than half of the distance. Along the way, he encountered some traces of the Earth Demon Sect's disciples, but he did not encounter any of them. In these few days, the profound cold force in your body has become more flexible. If you use your full strength now, I'm afraid you can easily kill a peak saint. Chu Fengyan looked to Han Yueli and said, in these 3 days, Han Yueli had been cultivating. He did not improve his cultivation, but chose to control the profound cold force in his body. Chu Fengyan used the ancient battle dragon bloodline to draw out all the profound cold force in Han Yueli's body. However, no matter how strong the force was, it must be controlled. In these 3 days, Han Yueli had gradually gained complete control of the profound cold force. Yes, I should be able to kill an ordinary peak saint. However, if I encounter a venerable from the Earth Demon sect, I only have the confidence to fight him. I'm not sure if I can kill him. Chapter 414. The Earth Demon sect's venerable that Han Yueli mentioned was the Earth Demon sect's venerable that had a power index of 10. Although Han Yueli was only at the 7th level of the divine power realm, she possessed a cold body. However, she had the profound cold body, and her strength far surpassed martial artists of the same realm. At the very least, Han Yueli could easily defeat the blue-clothed woman that Chu Fengyan's group had encountered. It wouldn't be a problem for her to kill ordinary pinnacle saints. You haven't completely mastered the cold power. I can only draw out your power, but I can't teach you how to control it. If you can fully control it, defeating the Earth Demon sect's venerable won't be a problem. Chu Fengyan looked at Han Yueli and said with a smile, with the innate divine body, it wouldn't be difficult for her to fight across a realm. Han Yueli's aptitude hadn't been fully developed yet. If she could obtain resources in the North Sea Academy and cultivate for a period of time, her strength would improve even more. Boom! While the two of them were still conversing, a loud noise suddenly sounded in the spatial tunnel. At the same time, Chu Fengyan frowned. He sensed that the surrounding space had been broken by someone. There were a few auras that directly entered the spatial tunnel from the outside. At a glance, one could see a few black-robed figures slowly walking in. They were looking all around as though they were searching for something. It's the Earth Demon sect's people, Tuoba Ding suddenly said when he saw the black-robed figures. The leader of the group is known as the Flower-Seizing Venerable. He's a famous genius in the Earth Demon sect. His aptitude is extremely high. His power index is already at the 7th level of the divine power realm, reaching the life and death realm. The flower-seizing venerable's methods are extremely ruthless. He's notorious for seizing many female saints from large sects and raping them to cultivate demonic arts. We'd better leave quickly. It's better not to fight with them. The flower-seizing venerable could be said to be a notorious expert in the North Sea Academy. He wouldn't shrink from any crime, especially raping women. Many disciples of the Northern Mang Academy were captured by him and died in his hands. Although there was a warrant for his arrest, the Northern Mang Academy's disciples had died in his hands. Although there was an arrest warrant for the flower-seizing venerable, his position in the Earth Demon sect was extremely high. He was definitely the most difficult person to deal with. Chu Fengyan didn't expect to encounter him today. It's too late to leave now. These people are coming for us, Chu Fengyan said calmly. The moment he saw the Earth Demon sect's disciples, they also sensed Chu Fengyan's group's existence. Their eyes glowed with excitement. There's really someone. There's someone who isn't afraid of death. Kill Venerable's Martial's peak martial realm experts' peak realm. Who cares? Just kill him. The strength of these two saints is not bad. One look, and I can tell that they are from a large force. Once we kill them and devour their blood essence, our strength will increase by another step. Fengyan's sex. She. I asked the sex. The Earth Demon sect's disciples looked at Chu Fengyan's group with excitement. Their eyes were bloodshot. They looked at Chu Fengyan as if they were looking at a treasure. They practiced demonic techniques by sucking the blood essence of martial artists. The blood essence of Venerable's blood essence was a great supplement for them. Go, kill them. Just kill the two men. Take their blood essence. As for the woman, capture her and send her to the flower-seizing venerable. A total of 8 black-robed venerables from the Earth Demon sect attacked. Martial techniques were launched at Chu Fengyan's group. However, the strongest 2 of them were only at the 9th level of the Divine Power Realm. Their power index didn't even reach a point. Chu Fengyan wasn't interested in them at all. You go and kill these people, Chu Fengyan said to Tuoba Ding. Yes. Tuoba Ding looked at the 8 black-robed venerables and sneered. He strode forward and attacked. Tuoba Ding was afraid of the flower-seizing venerable behind these people. However, these black-robed venerables were just small fries from the Earth Demon sect. He was an inner disciple of the Bei Mang Academy with a power index of 2. It was easy for him to deal with these people. 5 Wheels Secret Technique. Tuoba Ding's spiritual power burst out. He used his best 5 Wheels Secret Technique. The 5 Wheels Secret Technique immediately attacked 5 black-robed venerables killing them instantly. The 5 black-robed venerables were killed in one move. The 2 9th level Divine Power Realm venerables were the same. They couldn't escape the fate of being killed by Tuoba Ding. Although Tuoba Ding was just an ant in front of Chu Fengyan, he was a peerless genius in countless countries. He was definitely not weak to be promoted to an inner disciple of the Bei Mang Academy. Tuoba Ding killed the 5 black-robed venerables so easily. The remaining 3 people were stunned. They quickly retreated and didn't dare to move forward. One of them ran back and shouted to the flower-seizing venerable. Venerable, these people are very strong. We are no match for them. Why? 2 7th level Divine Power Realm venerables and an ant in the wind controlling realm. You're no match for them? A voice suddenly sounded. The voice was very clear. It sounded like a young man's voice. However, those who heard it shuddered as if it contained a strange chill. This young master wants to see who it is that dares to kill our Earth Demon sect's disciples. How bold! The flower-seizing venerable's figure suddenly appeared. He was not wearing black clothes. Instead, he was wearing blood-red clothes. However, upon closer inspection, one could see that the blood-red robe looked exactly the same as the black robe. However, within it, it was condensed by fresh blood into a blood-red color. No one knew how many people he had killed and how much blood he had soaked in to make it look like this. Oh, he is indeed at the 7th level Divine Power Realm. However, his strength isn't bad. He should be an inner disciple of the Bei Mang Academy. I think his secret technique is from the Bei Mang Academy. The flower-seizing exalted was able to determine the origin of the Tuoba cauldron with a single glance. As for the other one, the flower-seizing venerable suddenly looked at the Hanyueli. His face suddenly revealed a look of ecstasy. First watch today. Let's break out tomorrow. Forget that today is not a holiday. We don't have that much time. Chapter 415. Mysterious Cold Body. This is the mysterious cold body. The flower-seizing venerable's face changed the moment he saw Hanueli. He did not hide the astonishment on his face. Then he became ecstatic. I can't believe I encountered such an innate divine body. Huh. No wonder she is so powerful. She has an innate divine body. I caught her. I can use the supreme demonic skill to seize the innate power in her body. I can transform my body into an innate divine body. Innate divine body. Mysterious cold body. The other 3 disciples of the Earth Demon sect were excited when they heard the flower-seizing venerable's words. They looked at Hanueli as if they were looking at a mountain of gold. Warriors with innate divine bodies were fought over by everyone in ancient times. Once a warrior with innate divine body was captured, he could use the demonic skill to seize his innate power. Then he could transform into an innate divine body. With an innate divine body, one could be said to be blessed by the heavens. For example, Hanueli's strength increased by more than 10 times once she drew out the power in her bloodline. She was extremely terrifying. The 3 of you go and kill those 2 trash. As for this little beauty, I will deal with her personally. The flower-seizing venerable laughed and immediately pounced on Hanueli. With a wave of his hand, an endless amount of spiritual energy condensed. The spiritual energy immediately turned into ropes and formed a golden spiritual energy net. The spiritual energy net immediately grabbed Hanueli, trying to bind and capture Hanueli. Let me deal with this person. Chu Fengyan was about to intervene when he saw the flower-seizing venerable make his move, but Hanueli took the lead. Her words stopped Chu Fengyan. Then she moved, pulled out the spiritual sword in her hand, and immediately rushed toward the flower-seizing venerable. With a slash of his sword, he cut the golden net apart. Hanueli's current strength was no longer the same as before. Although he was not as strong as flower-snatching venerable, there was not much of a difference. Hence, it was not as if he did not have the ability to fight. Furthermore, the difference between Hanueli and the flower-seizing saint wasn't a difference in strength, but rather that Hanueli hadn't completely mastered the mysterious cold power. If he could completely control the profound cold power, Hanueli shouldn't be any weaker than the flower-seizing venerable. You 2 go deal with that brat from the Northern Mang Academy first. I'll kill this wind-resisting realm ant first. The 3 black-robed saints from the Earth Demon sect rushed over as well. 2 of them immediately tangled with the Tuoba cauldron, while the other pounced on Chu Fengyan. His face was cold as he looked at Chu Fengyan with disdain. You're just a kid in the wind-controlling realm. Have you seen enough? Go to hell. From his words, it was clear that he did not put Chu Fengyan in his eyes at all. After all, everyone below the saint realm was an ant. Even a peerless genius could break this rule. However, he didn't think that he would meet such a peerless genius here. Humph! Chu Fengyan sneered as he watched the black-robed saint rush over. He was already looking at a dead man. In Chu Fengyan's eyes, this kind of ordinary saint was no different from an ant. Suddenly, he waved his hand and turned it into a streak of spiritual power, striking at the black-robed saint. Ignorant brat, you still want to resist? The black-robed saint laughed heartily when he saw Chu Fengyan's attack. A warrior in the wind-controlling realm dared to attack a saint. He was definitely courting death. In the face of Chu Fengyan's spiritual power, he smiled contemptuously and pointed his finger, trying to block it. However, in the next moment, when his fingertip touched Chu Fengyan's spiritual energy, his finger was annihilated immediately. Under Chu Fengyan's spiritual power, the black-robed saint was not even qualified to resist. His finger was obliterated in an instant. Then, not only his finger, but also his body began to gradually disperse and shatter layer by layer. In the face of Chu Fengyan's spiritual power, the black-robed saint was as fragile as a piece of tofu, shattering with a touch. How could this be? The black-robed saint was extremely shocked. He was a saint, and the body of a saint was much harder than an ordinary spiritual weapon. A warrior in the wind-controlling realm did not even need to use spiritual power. Just the power that left his body was enough to easily crush Chu Fengmian to death. But now, in the face of Chu Fengmian's spiritual power, his body suddenly became incomparably fragile. His spiritual energy was completely unable to resist it. In fact, he was unable to resist it at all. One of his arms was completely shattered and obliterated. Damn it! This brat's strength is indeed deceptive. However, even if he did not believe it, the scene in front of him was undeniable. He made a prompt decision and mobilized all the spiritual power in his body. Suddenly, it turned into a huge barrier, ready to resist Chu Fengmian's spiritual power. A futile struggle. Chu Fengmian glanced at the black-robed saint and shook his head. The moment the spiritual power hit the barrier, it immediately unleashed its power and completely shattered the barrier. At the same time, the spiritual power swept through the black-robed saint's body and obliterated him completely. He did not have time to resist at all and had already fallen in Chu Fengmian's hands. What's going on? What happened? The other two black-robed saints heard the commotion and couldn't help but look over. They happened to see the black-robed saint being killed by Chu Fengmian. This trash can't even deal with a wind-controlling realm ant? No. This person's strength seems a little strange. So what? He's just a wind-controlling realm ant. Let's kill him first and slowly fight with this guy. A black-robed saint suddenly broke away and clawed at Chu Fengmian. As soon as he clawed out, the sky was suddenly filled with white bones. They immediately split into countless sharp claws and attacked Chu Fengmian in the blink of an eye. Die! Chu Fengmian only spat out one word coldly. At the same time, he struck out a palm. Die! Who do you think you are? The black-robed saint wanted to shout disdainfully, but in the next moment, his body was killed by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had seen the scene of the Earth Demon sect's disciples attacking martial artists, so he naturally had no mercy for these demons. With one move, the other two black-robed saints were also killed. Thank you for flames, Wang Nua's reward. Chapter 416. The moment Chu Fengmian easily killed the other three black-robed saints, Han Yueli and the flower-seizing venerable were already exchanging blows in the air. Although the two of them were still in the realm of the divine force realm, in terms of strength, the two of them were definitely at the life and death realm. Every move they made was extremely shocking. The surrounding space was shattered, turning into bursts of spatial turbulence. Little beauty, give up and let me capture you. Although you have an innate divine body, you're far from being my opponent. My strength is much greater than yours. It's meaningless for you to resist. The flower-seizing venerable looked at Han Yueli and teased her. As he spoke, he moved his hand and a folding fan appeared in his hand. This folding fan was extremely powerful. It was a top-grade, Earth-grade spirit artifact. As soon as the folding fan opened, there was a picture of a group of tigers roaring in the forest. The tigers in the fan were depicted as if they were real. As petal-plucking venerable injected a stream of spiritual energy into the fan, the tigers jumped out one after another from the fan. The strength of each tiger was not below a peak saint. They roared and pounced on Han Yueli. This flower-seizing venerable strength is not bad. Chu Fengmian was below, quietly watching the battle between the flower-seizing venerable and Han Yueli. He did not have any interest in fighting because to Han Yueli, this battle was also a good way to hone her skills. For a venerable, strength was not the foundation of strength. Battle experience was equally important. What Han Yueli lacked now was not strength, but the profound, cold energy in her body had been completely drawn out by Chu Fengmian. In terms of pure strength, she was a level higher than the flower-seizing venerable. However, because this profound, cold power was suddenly drawn out, Han Yueli was unable to control it well after obtaining such a large amount of energy for free. This battle with a strong opponent was enough for her to accumulate experience and properly control her own strength. Therefore, Chu Fengmian watched the battle unhurriedly. This was also a training for Han Yueli. He was not helping her. Countless ferocious tigers suddenly appeared and pounced on her. Han Yueli's expression was calm. The sword in his hand flashed continuously. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Every time the sword edge struck out, it would bring out some of the small ice crystals. These tiny ice crystals were not even the size of a finger. However, the moment it came into contact with the ferocious tiger, his spiritual power abruptly catalyzed. In the blink of an eye, the countless ferocious tigers were frozen by the ice soul. Then, Hanueli's sword cut through all of them. After all, Hanueli was once a genius of the Cold Snow Pavilion. Although she rarely fought after reaching the Divine Force realm, she wasn't a weak lady. Now that she had familiarized herself with the flower seizing exalted, her strength was no longer weak. She was not at a disadvantage when facing him. Oh, you do have some ability, but this is even better. This young master will suppress you first. I'll have a taste of you first, and then I'll take the Sciention power from you. The flower-seizing exalted sneered, and his spiritual power suddenly erupted. Immediately, he waved the folding fan in his hand, and a gust of spiritual power blasted out abruptly, forcing Hanueli to retreat. At the same time, he also secretly communicated with his spiritual power and quietly ambushed countless spiritual powers. As Hanueli struck again, the corners of his mouth suddenly revealed a somewhat strange smile, and he snorted coldly. The moment Hanueli stepped forward, countless spiritual powers suddenly appeared under her feet. These streaks of spiritual energy immediately turned into a spiritual energy cage, trapping her inside. Little beauty, your strength is not bad, but it's all in vain. Don't worry, although I'll take your Sciention power, I won't kill you. I'll keep you by my side and enjoy you well. The flower-seizing exalted licked the corners of his mouth, as if he was extremely excited. He had always been lustful, and Hanueli not only had the Shinhan body, but also her appearance was intoxicating. Immediately, he suppressed Hanueli, and his expression was extremely excited. Don't worry, after you become my woman, I promise I'll make you wish you were dead. The flower-seizing exalted waved his hand. Suppress. The spiritual energy cage instantly started to shrink. It wanted to completely trap Hanueli within it and completely suppress her. However, almost at this moment, a sword radiance appeared without a sound. With a bang, the Hanueli in the spiritual power cage shattered and turned into a mass of ice. The Hanueli, and it was a dummy, which was transformed by a gust of Hanueli's spiritual power. The real Hanue had long noticed the flower-seizing exalted scheme and had prepared a countermeasure. She suddenly attacked, and the sword radiance was extremely fast. Immediately, the flower-seizing exalted chest was cut open, and the wound began to freeze, and the blood kept flowing. It was impossible to stop the bleeding. Damn it! The flower-seizing exalted was shocked. He did not expect that Hanueli would not be suppressed by him at all. Now that a beam of sword light had pierced through his chest, his power began to weaken. Countless Saint Essence blood flowed out of his body. 1,000 icy peaks. After injuring the flower-seizing exalted with a single move, Hanueli did not stop and immediately performed her sword technique again. The sky was filled with ice crystals, each as sharp as a sword, and they pierced toward the flower-seizing exalted. Her face was filled with anger, and she was determined to kill the flower-seizing exalted. Humph! The flower-seizing exalted snorted coldly. Knowing that he was no match for her, he moved his body and immediately dodged. His strength was on par with Hanueli's to begin with. Now that he was injured, there was no way he would stand a chance against Hanueli. Even if he wanted to run away, there was no way he could do so. After all, their strengths were on par, and one of them was severely injured, thus it was impossible for him to escape. The flower-seizing exalted's eyes flickered. He suddenly saw Chu Fengyan below him, and a sinister grin appeared on his face as he dashed toward Chu Fengyan. Little beauty, kill me if you dare. I'll kill these two pieces of trash. Judging from the unusual relationship between the two of you, if you want them to live, you'd better let me go. The flower-seizing exalted turned around and said to Hanueli while grabbing at Chu Fengyan. He was planning to capture Chu Fengyan to threaten Hanueli. However, as soon as he finished his sentence. Hanueli and Tuoba Ding's expressions became strange. They did not show any sign of worry, but wore half-smiles instead. Chapter 417. Capturing Chu Fengmian to threaten Hanueli? Hanueli and Tuoba Ding were trying to hold back their laughter. They were laughing at the flower-snatching venerable's stupidity. If he insisted on escaping, he might still have a chance. But now, he actually intended to capture Chu Fengmian to threaten Hanueli. He was simply digging his own grave. Chu Fengmian seemed to be in the wind-controlling realm, but in terms of real strength, he was stronger than Hanueli. Now, he actually wanted to capture Chu Fengmian. He was simply digging his own grave. What? Are you afraid? In that case, let go of me quickly and let me leave. Seeing Hanueli's expression, the flower-snatching venerable thought that Hanueli was frightened, so he sneered. But in the next moment, his body was directly pinched by an incomparably huge force. Chu Fengmian slowly raised his arm and suddenly squeezed. The flower-snatching venerable was actually completely caught in Chu Fengmian's hand. The protective spiritual power on his body was suddenly crushed in Chu Fengmian's hand. Impossible. My protective spiritual power can't be broken even by a peak saint. How could it be crushed by a wind-controlling realm warrior? The flower-snatching venerable was astonished. This was something that he had never expected to happen. He thought that he could capture Chu Fengmian to threaten Hanueli, but he didn't expect that he was digging his own grave. Heaven-seizing palm. The flower-snatching venerable immediately realized that Chu Fengmian had concealed his strength. He suddenly operated his spiritual power and hit Chu Fengmian with his palm, intending to break free from Chu Fengmian's hand and escape. Break! But the moment his palm touched Chu Fengmian's face, Chu Fengmian uttered a word, and it was completely dissolved. His heaven-seizing palm was dissolved with a single word, which made the flower-snatching venerable extremely shocked. His strength was actually so powerful. The flower-snatching venerable turned pale with fright. Only now did he realize how stupid his choice was. He wanted to use an escape technique to escape, but in Chu Fengmian's hand, he couldn't even struggle. As Chu Fengmian squeezed his hand, the flower-snatching venerable realized the threat of death. He was a supreme genius of the Earth Demon sect, capable of contending against life and death experts. He didn't expect that he would be forced into such a desperate situation. Earth Demon. The flower-seizing venerable suddenly shouted when he recalled his identity. Kid, you dare to kill me? The Earth Demon sect behind me won't let you off. The flower-seizing venerable roared as he struggled to resist Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy. My father is a supreme devil ancestor of the Earth Devil sect. If you dare to kill me, just wait for our Earth Demon sect's endless pursuit. Chu chooses to be S deaths. He's whole stew. S to death to the twos ftu. Leave. FFU. Fius. Exclamation point. The venerable screamed miserably as his body was crushed by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's assess to crush even the venerable's soul. Chu Fengmian wouldn't give such a demon any chance. Countless saints' blood essence fell into Chu Fengmian's hand and was directly devoured. The venerable's blood essence was much more powerful than any of the blood essence Chu Fengmian had ever obtained. It instantly fused with his slaughter sword art. Immediately, Chu Fengmian felt that his slaughter sword art seemed to have made some progress. The flower-seizing venerable died, just like that. Tuoba Ding looked at the flower-seizing venerable. Chu Fengmian had crushed such a famous demon to death. His eyes were filled with extreme shock. He naturally knew how powerful Chu Fengmian was. However, the venerable wasn't an ordinary person either. As a venerable of the Earth Demon sect, he had the same status as a seed disciple of the North Sea Academy. With a power index of 11, his strength had already reached the life and death realm. Now, the venerable had died in Chu Fengmian's hands so easily. This also meant that Chu Fengmian's strength had already surpassed many of the seed disciples of the North Sea Academy. How could he not be shocked? Soon after, Tuoba Ding reacted with joy. Following such a powerhouse, even if he was to become a slave, he would be filled with hope. Young master, the venerable had a high status in the Earth Demon sect. His father was a peak life and death realm Wushang demonic ancestor. His spatial ring must have a lot of wealth. Tuoba Ding said fawningly. Even without Tuoba Ding's reminder, Chu Fumian had already noticed this. With a move of his palm, Tuoba Ding's spatial ring landed in his palm. He poured his spiritual power into it and opened it. Immediately, he was dazzled by the countless treasures inside. The number of treasures was simply frightening. Among them, there were more than 100 vats of Saint's blood essence. It was unknown how many people the Venerable had killed to obtain so much Saint's blood essence. This wealth was worth at least several billion 9 cauldron pills. Although it was nothing to the current Chu Fengyan, it was still an incomparably huge fortune. This Saint's blood essence can be used to refine my slaughter sword art. Chu Fengyan made a grasping motion, and the quintessence blood of the great sage flew out of the ring, devoured it, and refined it. The killing intent on Chu Fengyan's body became even denser, causing others to tremble uncontrollably. Although the Saint's blood essence wasn't enough to let Chu Fengyan's slaughter sword art reach greater completion, it was still a lot closer. Killing the Venerable had indeed brought him a lot of benefits. After devouring the 100 vats of Saint's blood essence, the Venerable's spatial ring was clearly emptied. Chu Fengyan glanced over and saw something unusual. "Oh, what's this?" Chu Fengyan reached out his hand and grabbed one of the black box-like objects. Chu Fengyan took a closer look and saw a figure inside. Sumeru's space? Seeing the black box, Chu Fengyan was suddenly shocked. This black box was actually the legendary Sumeru space. The Sumeru space was also a spatial spiritual tool. It was very similar to the spatial ring, but it was much rarer than the spatial ring. Moreover, its value was far more than the spatial ring by 10,000 or even 100,000 times. This was because the Sumeru space wasn't just like the spatial ring that could store items, it could also store living things. In other words, anyone could enter the Sumeru space. Thank you for the reward from Porridge is awake. Chapter 4:18. The preciousness of Sumeru spaces was simply not inferior to some heaven-level spirit artifacts. In fact, they were even more precious than heaven-level spirit artifacts. Since the ancient era, very few of them had existed. The fact that Sumeru spaces could contain living things was enough to determine their value. For example, if some cultivators were to offend some major powers and be hunted down by them, they would be able to hide in Sumeru spaces. If they were to hide in a Sumeru space, they would be able to avoid a calamity. Some enormous Sumeru spaces were even capable of nurturing monstrous beasts that could be summoned at any time to fight against their enemies. They were absolute trump cards. However, the Sumeru space before them did not appear to be enormous. Nevertheless, it was still large enough for several people to enter. There seems to be someone in this Sumeru space. Chu Fengyan took a glance at the Sumeru space and discovered a figure. The person inside seemed to have been sealed by the flower-snatching Venerable. Chu Fengyan grabbed with his hand and pulled the person out from the Sumeru space. The figure appeared to be a young girl. She cursed loudly the moment she appeared. "Damn demons! You want to kidnap me in exchange for our Su family's ransom? Don't even think about it. If you don't release this young lady today, our Su family will completely annihilate you all." This voice was sharp to the extreme, extremely rude and unreasonable. Hearing that voice, the expressions of Chu Fengyan and the others became extremely strange. This young girl was none other than the blue-clothed woman that Chu Fengyan had met before and had a conflict with. "How could it be you all? Where are the people from the Earth Demon sect?" The blue-clothed woman opened her eyes and was startled to see Chu Fengyan and the others. She was startled. Then, she scanned her surroundings and saw the battle that had just occurred. "Were you all the ones who killed those demons from the Earth Demon sect?" The blue-clothed woman snorted coldly and shouted at Chu Fengyan. "Why aren't you removing my restrictions?" "Amen?" Chu Fengyan frowned upon hearing the blue-clothed woman's words. Chu Fengyan did not have a good impression of the blue-clothed woman. However, he did not have any great grievances with her. Now that he had coincidentally saved her, her rudeness was truly displeasing. However, Chu Fengmian's mind was still moved. He struck out with his spiritual power and broke the restriction on the blue-clothed woman's body. The blue-clothed woman's aura recovered as soon as the restriction was broken. She looked at Chu Fengmian and suddenly spoke. "My name is Su Jin. Who are you? Why are you here?" The blue-clothed woman, Su Jin, looked at Chu Fengmian with some doubt. Although she had met Chu Fengmian's group once, she had never talked to them. Naturally, she didn't know the identity of Chu Fengmian's group. "We are from the Qin Empire, and we are preparing to head to the Beimang Academy to take part in the examination," Chu Fengmian said calmly. "This time, I crossed the void and met the flower-seizing venerable." "You killed the flower-seizing venerable?" Su Jin looked at Chu Fengmian with some doubt in her eyes. She had thought that Chu Fengmian had been lucky enough to find the Sumeru space and let her out. After all, flower-seizing venerable was an existence comparable to life and death realm experts. Even she didn't have any power to resist and was defeated in an instant. Chu Fengmian's group consisted of a peak wind resistance realm martial artist and 2 7th-level divine power realm saints. How could they contend against the flower-seizing venerable? She naturally didn't believe that Chu Fengmian's group had the strength to kill the flower-seizing venerable. When we met the flower-seizing venerable, he was already heavily injured. That's why we were able to kill him. Chu Fengmian didn't feel like explaining and directly spoke. In any case, he didn't know whether this Su Jin was friend or foe. Thus, he naturally didn't feel like explaining. Humph. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Su Jin's eyes became even more disdainful. If they could kill the flower-seizing venerable, she would think highly of Chu Fengmian's group. However, the flower-seizing venerable was only heavily injured, so she naturally didn't care. "Right, you killed the flower-seizing venerable. Is the Sumeru space in your hands?" "That's mine. Return it to me." Su Jin's eyes suddenly turned, revealing some greed as she coldly said, "It belongs to our Su family. Please return it immediately." "What? We obtained the Sumeru space from the flower-seizing venerable. What does it have to do with you?" Han Yueli couldn't help but frown as she stood to the side. How could a treasure like the Sumeru space be given to Su Jin just because she said so? Moreover, it seemed that the Sumeru space didn't belong to Su Jin. "If I say it's mine, then it's mine. Give me the Sumeru space." Su Jin coldly snorted as her spiritual energy suddenly erupted, wanting to suppress Han Yueli. However, in the next moment, Han Yueli's spiritual energy also erupted. Immediately, the two spiritual energies collided. Su Jin's spiritual energy was completely suppressed, unable to resist at all. Han Yueli was now able to defeat even the flower-seizing venerable. How could Su Jin be her match? What a powerful force! Su Jin's expression suddenly changed. Knowing that she had kicked an iron plate, she could only withdraw her spiritual energy and didn't dare to say anything else. "Let's go," Chu Fengmian calmly said to Han Yueli as he glanced at Su Jin. Saving Su Jin was just a coincidence, so Chu Fengmian couldn't be bothered to bicker with her. Now, he turned around and prepared to leave for Xianzhou Ancient City. "Wait, since you came from the Qin Empire to participate in the Northern Mang Academy's examination, you shouldn't be qualified to take the examination." Su Jin suddenly stopped Chu Fengmian. "The three of you have saved me, so I am indebted to you. I, Su Jin, am not an ungrateful person. Our Su family is a big family in the Xiandou Nation, so we are qualified to take part in the Northern Mang Academy's examination. You can follow me to the Xiandou Nation. Our Su family will give you 3 places to take part in the examination. It's not difficult, so it can be considered as compensation." When Su Jin spoke, she wasn't as arrogant as before. Instead, she was much calmer as she quietly spoke. "Oh." Hearing Su Jin's words, Chu Fengmian slightly raised his eyebrows. If he could obtain the qualifications to take part in the examination from her, it would save him a lot of trouble. "Young master, the Su family is indeed one of the big families in the Xiandou Nation. Every year, they have many places to take part in the Northern Mang Academy's examination. She is from the Su family," Tuoba Ding whispered in Chu Fengmian's ear. "There's no problem with her words. However, I'm worried that there's a trap in her words. After all, with her character, it's impossible for her to obediently repay your kindness. Young master, you must act cautiously. Chapter 419. The Su family was one of the families affiliated to the North Sea Academy. In the Xiando nation, they were an overlord. Every time the exam was held, the Su family would obtain many exam quotas. With these quotas, the Su family would flourish. Hearing Tuoba Ding's words, Chu Fumian asked, "Are there any experts in the Su family?" In the Su family, there's a second layer life and death realm old ancestor. His power index has reached 30. He could be considered a somewhat famous expert. Tuoba Ding reported truthfully, second layer life and death realm. Chu Fumian's eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. Soon after, his expression changed as he looked at Su Jin and said, "Very well. If the Su family is willing to give us the exam quotas, we won't ask for it for nothing. We can give you a portion of our wealth." As Chu Fumian spoke, he waved his hand. Suddenly, a long river of spiritual medicine appeared in his palm. Within it was an endless amount of 9 cauldron pellets. There was a total of 10 billion 9 cauldron pellets. Amen. Hearing Chu Fumian's words, Su Jin's expression was one of disapproval. After all, in her opinion, Chu Fumian's group was nothing more than people from a small country. How could they possibly possess any wealth? However, when she saw the billion 9 cauldron pills, her expression immediately changed. Greed filled her eyes. To her, a billion 9 cauldron pills was an enormous amount of wealth. Although she came from the Su family also had countless outstanding disciples. Apart from the Su family's family head, no one else could take out so much wealth at once. Su Jin's expression changed slightly, but soon returned to normal. She said with a smile on her face, "You've all saved me. Once you follow me back to the Su family, the exam quotas will naturally be given to you. Everyone, please follow me." After saying those words, Su Jin brought Chu Fumian and continued flying. The Xiando nation where the Su family was located was near the North Sea Academy. Thus, the route was the same. Chu Fumian's group first arrived at the Xianzhou ancient city. Then, they used the teleportation array to cross countless countries. Finally, after 7 days, they arrived before an incomparably huge city. This city was the capital of the Xiando nation, Xiando City. The Su family behind Su Jin was located here. The city was even bigger than an entire Wuxing country. At a glance, the sky above the city was filled with faint ripples. Waves of spiritual energy fluctuations were emitted from within. Within this dark battle city, there were many restrictions and formations protecting it. It wasn't much different from the Spring City Kingdom. Chu Fumian and the others landed in the city. When the 2 guards of Xiando City saw Chu Fumian's group descend, they came over to welcome them. These 2 guards of Darkfight City both had the strength of the wind controlling realm. However, their aptitudes were ordinary, and they would probably never be able to step into the divine force realm and become a saint in their entire lives. "Who are you? Trespassing the city gate. Stop." The 2 wardens snapped. "2 pieces of trash. You can't even recognize me?" Su Jin's expression turned cold as he said coldly, "Get out of my way. It's Miss Jean. Miss Jean, you're back." When the 2 guards saw Su Jin's appearance, their expressions changed greatly. Their faces turned pale, and they became extremely nervous. "We were blind and didn't recognize Miss Jean. Please forgive us, Miss Jean." It seemed that the 2 guards were extremely afraid of Su Jin. They knelt on the ground and begged. Today, I brought an important guest here. I won't bicker with you two." Su Jin waved her sleeve and led Chu Fumian's group into Darkfight City. She didn't pay any attention to the 2 guards. After entering Darkfight City, Chu Fumian looked around and saw countless people. The trade in Darkfight City wasn't too prosperous. At the very least, it was far inferior to the Spring City ancient city. However, there were many cultivators among them. At the very least, Chu Fumian could tell that there were a few people who had the aptitude to break through to the divine force realm and become a saint. However, even if they had the aptitude to break through to the divine force realm, there were only a few who could truly break through to the divine force realm and become a saint. The entire Darkfight City seemed to be filled with people who practiced dancing. Everyone practiced the martial Tao and was filled with high fighting spirit. I want to see what kind of experts are in Dark Fight City. Chu Fengmian's spiritual sense erupted without batting an eyelid. He had lived 2 lives, so his spiritual sense was much stronger than ordinary cultivators. In an instant, Chu Fengmian swept his gaze over the greater half of Dark Fight City. There was only a single life and death expert in Dark Fight City. He should be the old ancestor of the Su family that Tuoba Ding had mentioned. Even in this huge Dark Fight City, there was only a single life and death expert. It seemed like it wasn't that easy to enter the life and death realm. Although there were many life and death experts in the Northern Sea Academy, they were all accumulated over millions of years and the geniuses of the entire northern region. A true life and death expert was someone who stood out from millions of people. Millions of people might not necessarily be able to nurture a single life and death expert. Young Master Chu, what do you think about Dark Fight City? While walking in the city, Su Jin casually asked Chu Fengmian. Although her words seemed to be chatting casually, there was some probing hidden within. With Chu Fengmian's temperament, he could naturally tell with a glance. He deliberately put on an astonished expression and spoke like a country bumpkin who had just seen the market. It's too flourishing. It's countless times more flourishing than my hometown. As expected, a country bumpkin from a remote place. Hearing Chu Fengmian's astonished words, Su Jin sneered in her heart, but her expression was extremely calm as she spoke. The Northern Sea Academy is located in the Northern Sea City. That place is truly flourishing. It's dozens, hundreds of times more flourishing than our Dark Fight City. In the future, when young Master Chu enters the Northern Sea Academy, you'll naturally meet him. Oh, dozens of times more flourishing than Dark Fight City? Hundreds of times? Chu Fengmian deliberately put on an astonished expression as he spoke. That's right. Su Ji nodded. She looked at Chu Fengmian with even more disdain. Chu Fengmian's group came from a remote country, yet they still had such strength and wealth. With a single glance, one could tell that they were nouveau riche who had obtained some miraculous treasure. She was naturally extremely disdainful. However, Su Jin's expression revealed a faint smile from beginning to end. There was no change in her expression. Let's go quickly. I've already informed my father. He's already waiting in the mansion. As she spoke, the group quickened their pace and headed toward the Su mansion. Thank you for the reward from the Guardian in the rain. Today, the author's platform collapsed. I couldn't send it up. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.